Live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome to a very hot and sunny treehouse dam here at Djuma Private Game Reserve. It is a scorching day. We are well over the 30s here in Celsius, and I felt like it was a really good idea to start off at the dam. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari here this afternoon. Behind the camera we have Morgan, and I figured a good place to start is where I left some leopard tracks this morning. So you can see it is quite a, I want to say, well, it's actually just extremely hot. I'll be dead honest, it's extremely hot today. I don't think there's many animals that are active right now, but the best place to start is at a watering hole. It seems that the only life here is the odd bird call and a blacksmith lapwing, the occasional terrapin. And what I'm actually doing is just scanning for any signs of those leopards, because I had leopard tracks here this morning. So I'm hoping that as the day goes on, especially with the drainage line next to the dam, that maybe the leopards might be around here. But I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments or questions, please do send them in. We'll be waiting to answer them for you. You can find us at #WildEarth on Twitter, at FC on YouTube. If you're under the age of 18, you can send us an email at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv, or you can register on the WildEarth website. Head over to the live safari page and you can submit your questions there. We are really looking forward to hear what you have to say on this very, very hot day. We don't have any rain expected. There is, however, a lovely cool breeze that is saving the day because it is so hot. So I'm going to head up onto the dam wall and just see if I can look down the other side into the drainage line as well. Hopefully I might be able to find a leopard around here this afternoon, but I'm going to send you over to Tristan, who wants to say good afternoon.
Well, I hope so, Tessa. It's been a bit dry on the leopard front the last few days, and it'll be nice to actually have a leopard on Djuma and not kind of on one of the other properties. Anyway, my name is Tristan. On camera I've got myself, because I'm on dam cam once again, in case you didn't notice, and we're going to be scouting about this afternoon, seeing what we can find. As Tessa said, it is extremely warm in the sun, so we're going to find a lot of our animals are going to spend a lot of time in the shade. You can see this kudu has just made its way up into a little shady spot now, where it can take it easy. Now, if you do hear people laughing and voices, those are guests in the camp nearby. They're obviously having a whale of a time. You can see the fence in the background of where this kudu is heading, kind of out of frame at the moment. So yeah, they'll be there in the background, having a good time, which is always nice. I'm sure they're going to head out. There's an elephant that's just come down too. I think we'll get probably quite a few ellies over the course of this afternoon. Given how warm it is, I would expect that the elephants are going to come down and mud wallow and just generally try and kind of keep cool. What is that in the foreground there? Looks like a bird of prey in the foreground. Or is it a starling? It's a little far to see nicely what it is. No, it's not a starling. Is it a bird of prey? Looks like maybe a little sparrowhawk or something like that. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what it is. Yeah, it looks like maybe a little sparrowhawk or a shikra. I can't see the color of the eye nicely, but it's definitely one of the birds of prey, those little ones. Unfortunately, it's quite far, so we lose a lot of quality by trying to zoom in too far there. I'm just trying to get the focus right on it. I don't know if somebody can maybe clean that up and try and get a better idea of it. But yeah, it looks like maybe it's got a yellow cere, so that already kind of narrows it down a little bit. If it's got a yellow eye, then that's going to be a little sparrowhawk. If it's got a little cherry red eye, then a shikra. But like I said, it's difficult to actually see nicely what's going on there. It's a little too far, and we just can't get the camera in tight enough to idea it. It's sitting in the shade, so I want to just keep it quite wide like this while we watch the elephant, just in case this flies up. Maybe it's managed to make a little kill here. Often when these birds are sitting low on the ground like this in a little shady spot, it's because they've caught something and they're just catching their breath a little bit before they fly up and land somewhere. So you never know, maybe it's managed to grab something like a little dove or a little canary or sparrow or something like that. Remember, these guys are big bird hunters, so they'll go quite heavily after those small bird passerines. And so maybe, just maybe, if it's got a kill, it'll fly up to a near tree that we can actually see quite nicely. In the meantime, in the background, you can see Ellie's having an absolute whale of a time. They're getting into the mud in the far edge or far end of the dam. It's hot, and so this is going to be the order of the day for elephants. If I was an elephant, I most certainly would be doing the same thing, is to try and just get as much of a coating on the body as possible. Try and kind of coat everything with mud and create that protective layer from the sun, stop dehydration and loss of moisture through that big skin that they've got. Remember, they've got increased surface area from the wrinkles of the skin, and so this mud wallowing really just does a lot to kind of keep it at bay. You will see the camera will just move a little bit every now and then. That's the wind that's blowing this afternoon. Tessa was referring to a strong breeze that's cool. So that's what that is. The camera's going to shake a little bit on the long end, unfortunately. There's nothing we can do about it. It is just the way it is, and hopefully some of the elephants will come up and will start to kind of drink and feed and move around on the side where the camera is. It'll give us much better views. Patricia, that's a good question actually, but no, I don't think so. I think what will happen is when they get mud in their trunks, then they just try and blow it out. So you know, if you've got like a blocked nose, then you get a tissue and you blow your nose. I think it's very similar for them, is that they'll just push air out and that will clean the trunk out, and then they go to water and things like that, and they, you know, will flush it with water, and eventually the mud will all be gone. Just watching this little bird of prey in the front here. Doesn't seem to be feeding. It's not like it's dropping its head to feed. It's just been sitting in the shade. But it's an odd place for them to sit. They don't normally sit on the ground like that. They're normally on a little branch somewhere where they kind of hide away for the most part at this time of the day. One, because of heat, and two, because of all the other birds that accost them and harass them when they're sitting on branches in the open. So they like to sit where it's a little bit kind of sheltered, and then they can be kind of easily overlooked from there, and no one really bothers them that much. For now, it's just taking. I just want to come back a little bit just to see. Oh, there it went. It flew off. David, antelope, not so much, but there was an animal here just now, which I'm going to try and find for you quickly. There we go, little warthogs. So warthogs will mud wallow. They like to get their bodies completely covered in mud. So generally, don't go down. Warthog's going to disappear out of sight, isn't it? So they generally, the animals that mud wallow are those that have very little fur. If they've got a lot of fur, then for them it's not great to mud wallow, because the mud will get trapped in the fur and it'll just make the fur pretty gross. So those that are less covered in fur are those that are more likely to wallow. So things like impalas, no, you don't see them doing it. Kudu, all of those antelope, no, but some of the animals that have very sparsely covered bodies with fur or hair will wallow quite a bit. But you can see these guys are all having a good feed, eating bits of green vegetation that's growing on the edge of the dam at the moment. A lot of this will be vegetation that they won't find anywhere else, and so it's important for them to take in what they can. All right, our warthogs are going down. The impalas are just moving a little bit. There's one warthog that's coming back up. You can hear some go-away birds just calling as well. Now that could be for a number of reasons. It could be that little sparrowhawk that we saw when it flew. Often you'll find all the birds start to alarm call. If they see one of those hawks flying, they're very, very, very skittish about what's going on. All right, we're going to stay obviously on the dam cam. We'll see what else comes down. I'm hoping that we'll get quite a lot of ellies this afternoon, and maybe we'll also get lucky with a cat as it draws towards the cooler part of the day around sunset.
Right, so I'm actually bumbling along a drainage line. Now, I don't know if you can see that elephant that's getting quite upset. It's a teenage elephant. Seems to be unhappy or chasing something. It's gone into the thickets now, but I do want to just spend a minute here because the tracks of that leopard were coming towards this drainage line this morning, and so very, very likely that if that elephant is getting upset, that the leopard might be here along the drainage line. So I just want to make sure before I leave what might be here. You can hear the wind is picking up beautifully. And so this drainage line is going to be the best place for a leopard to be resting this afternoon, because it's much more sheltered in terms of the sun than the dam is. As much as it needs the water on a hot day, it definitely needs the shade of the drainage line a little bit more. The elephant has actually moved off, but I definitely do want to just check and see if there might be a leopard here. I'm actually going to drive very slowly just around the termite mound, because if the elephant is on the other bank of the drainage line, it might have chased the leopard up this side. So I do just want to check very slowly. It is the perfect place for a leopard. Termite mounds, tall trees, a breeze. So I can actually see the elephants on the other bank. I actually just want to sit here and listen for a minute, just because it does seem to be an entire herd, and they do look a little bit nervous. So I'm definitely going to be sticking around here for a little bit longer just to make sure of what is around. Right, so I'm actually gonna keep driving along the edge of the drainage line. The elephants are on the opposite side of it. They are moving, so they're on the right hand side. I'm on the left hand side. This is where leopard tracks were coming to this morning, and the elephants looked like they were a little bit upset, so I'm just taking it slow in case they've chased a leopard up onto this bank, which is very likely because it looks like it's a whole herd of elephants. Unfortunately, it's not a drainage line that I can drive into. It's quite narrow. So I just want to double check what might be around. It is actually quite often that other animals are the indicator for where a predator is. So I'm hoping this might be a lucky start to the afternoon with elephants and a leopard. Do actually look quite relaxed over here, so possibly a little bit further up the drainage line. But I'm actually going to check both sides of this drainage line. It's definitely worth it. do want to come down just a little bit just to check a little bit closer to the drainage line. The elephants are definitely unhappy. So I want to stop here and have a look. The herd is actually coming from the right down to the left, but they look a bit unsettled. They're getting, I would call it antsy. They're getting antsy about pretty much everything. So that gives me an idea that they can smell the leopard, or they might have seen it. That too. Morgan says it's just 2 million degrees. So maybe they're just hot. Very, very likely. Can hear Wendy moving. Apologies. The old girl is slipping. Right, so it looks like the rest of the herd is coming down slowly. Where they got upset was actually a little bit further up. So probably another 50 meters behind those elephants is where the first one started getting quite upset. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if they have chased a leopard, because I know that the tracks were coming to Treehouse Dam this morning. And later in the morning they saw a leopard around here. So very likely that it might still be around, just hiding from the elephants. I can imagine on such a hot day the elephants are going to want to stick to this drainage line as much as possible. So it's actually brilliant for flushing out any predators, because the herd will not tolerate any predators close to their babies. The big females do seem quite relaxed here. It was actually a teenager that got quite upset. And so I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and get over to the other side of the drainage line and see if I can check further up again back towards the dam. Maybe I'll see something coming out on that side.
If you are a Wild Earth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an eco-training ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
Well, we're still with our two little Ellies that are moving on. I'm going to say little Ellies, they're both quite young bulls. There's only the one that you can see at the moment. He's just come from a dead leadwood where he was having the best time, scratching himself, his whole side of his body, his bum, his ears. He was just rubbing everywhere. It looks as though he was having a fine time. And you can see that's quite interesting behavior. Do you notice when it rocks its feet like that? So there's a herd coming in. That's why there's this new other elephants that they don't know coming through. So when they rock their feet like that, that's often an indication of a little bit of indecision. You see it in elephants quite regularly. When there's other elephants approaching, or they're crossing a road, or a car arrives, they'll just stop and that front leg just rocks a little bit. And they actually did quite a lot of studies on elephant gestures and movement of their feet and trunks and those kinds of things in Amboseli in Kenya, and they were trying to work out if they could figure out what all of these little movements would mean and how they would be able to communicate with one another from that. So subtle body language rather than vocal communication, and the rocking of the feet was definitely one of them. There's other things would be like erect tail, ears out, head raised, trunks up, all of those kinds of things would be things that they would use to determine communication amongst Ellies. I'm interested to see what this elephant's doing, because it's managed to find itself a little branch But that branch looks completely dead and devoid of nutrients. I don't know if it's just moving it to try and get the grass underneath. Often elephants will do that, is if there's something that they're looking for that's underneath all of that, they'll move it around. Let's grab that branch, and I'm surprised because those branches have been brush packed there. They've been there for months without any elliot eating it. So it's interesting that an elliot that's come across now is picking up pretty dry, pretty dead branches to chew. You can see the young one is trying to muscle in on mom's branches. Such interesting behaviors. This short trunk, it looks like it might be her. Just go down here quickly, and it is short trunk, which is nice to see. Those of you who aren't familiar with some of the elephants of the area, we have a few individual females that we know quite well. She's one of them. So if you look, it's not easy on this particular picture, but hopefully she'll come in towards the waterhole and I'll be able to show you her trunk better. But she has this shortened trunk. We think that in all likelihood it was shortened by potentially being put through a snare, and the snare has just cut the tip of the trunk, and that's led to the shortening of it. It's something that you do see in elephants, unfortunately, throughout Africa. Their trunks, because of the lack of bone and things like that, if a snare does get around it, it's very quick to actually cut through it and cause the severing of it. The thing is with her, though, is while it's not ideal that obviously she's lost the tip of her trunk, the way she healed was actually pretty cool. She healed with essentially the top part slightly extended, so it's actually created, while it's not the kind of two fingers that she would normally have, there's still like an overlap of the front section of the trunk, and that allows her to kind of bend it around branches. So she can do pretty much everything any other elephant can do. She's pretty adept at picking up things. I mean, you saw just now she picked things up, put it in her mouth. So even though she's got a shortened tip, she's actually an animal that is very much functioning. I've seen other elephants where the trunk is severed from basically the tusk area, and that's a lot harder for them to go about their business. Look at this little one scratching on its mom. When mom is a mobile scratching post, makes for interesting times. And she's weird, this elephant. She has an ability to go in and out of herds. I've seen her in big groups with other elephants, and then often she's in just a small little family group, and that little family group is normally her and her offspring. I think it's a little male, if I remember correctly. And then she's accompanied by one big male and not big male, but one teenage male, and another little cow that follows her around. That's normally the four of them. And then they go in and out of big herds quite regularly. I've seen her in a herd of like 40 elephants together, and then other times she's just on her own like this. Look how the other one's sniffing the elephant dung from the last few days. I'm sure they're going to come up and have a good drink at the pan, so we'll just be patient and wait for them to come that way.
The WildEarth channel now runs for 24 hours a day and is filled with exciting wildlife experiences for the whole family. In addition to our twice daily live safaris from Africa, we launch Sea Forest. Free divers explore the great African kelp forest under the water in Cape Town, while naturalists on the surface explain what we are seeing in real time. Our Escape to Nature series features exceptional wildlife footage throughout the day, and here you can immerse yourself in the sights and sounds of nature. And finally, we are launching a brand new penguin experience later this month, where you can follow the lives of a group of African penguins daily and in real time. If you want to join in on these experiences, then head over to wildearth.tv/channel to see where you can watch. Escape to nature with WildEarth.
Civilized to just spend some black rhino tracks. A mother with a calf. The calf tracks are so small There's somewhere here in this area, but it's too dense to walk this way. So we're going to walk around where it's not so dense. Let's hope we get lucky.
And sometimes you often drag their feet forward and deposit the scent mark, which is that what they use to patrol their territory.
We managed to get a glimpse of the black rhino, but for safety reasons, of course, we held back and we walked a different way, but it was such a fantastic experience. We didn't just focus on the big things, because it's not all about the big things. We focused on army ants and lots of dung. Civilized did an incredible job, but it's up to the judges now.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
I do have a feeling we're live right now. Maybe just last month.
So I am now on the other side of the drainage line. This is where it kind of splits and moves with different tributaries. And this seems like part of a herd of elephants that may be a related family to the elephants that were a bit unhappy near the other drainage line. It definitely does make me think that there might have been a predator around, because these elephants are further away and they are quite relaxed. They look like they have been to the dam. They've got some drying mud on them. But they are actually slowly heading back towards the dam, so possibly getting a bit hot feeding again and wanting to move back over. This must be quite a large herd. It seems like, at least with the other half that was further up the drainage line where I stopped looking for the leopard. Between them and these ones, it looks like 30 plus elephants. So what I'm hoping for is, because there is quite a lot of elephant activity right the way through this drainage line from Twin Dams all the way up to Treehouse Dam, which is the drainage line where the leopard tracks went to. I'm hoping that the elephant activity might flush the leopard out if it is in there, because it's such a thick drainage line that I actually can't get in there. Forest, I agree, elephants are always an amazing way to start any drive or any day. I think that there are so many elephants around at the moment because there's nice water here on Djuma, and so the elephants are really becoming very populous. It's very interesting to see the difference, because when it was overcast and cold last week, there were no elephants anywhere. We struggled to find animals, and now that it's hot, and tomorrow's going to be even hotter, tomorrow's going to go up to 36 or so degrees Celsius, 37. I think elephants are going to be the main or the staple of every day at this point. It does look like the other part of the herd is coming down in the distance and heading towards the dam. So it's definitely one of those days where I think elephants are going to be the most frequent visitor at the dam. Like I said, I am hoping, because this is a herd with babies, because there's a lot of activity, the females will get unhappy if they smell a predator, and so I'm hoping that would possibly cause the leopard to move a little bit. The idea I have of where it is, if I can get my English out, is in the very, very thick part of the drainage line, surrounded by quite a lot of tambuetes, and so it's very, very difficult to get in there. The elephants do seem to be migrating back towards the dam, though. They've kind of turned around and are moving down towards the dam. So I'm thinking what I might do is actually leave these for you here and head back towards the dam to see if those ones are having a drink. And hopefully as the day goes on and as it gets cooler, it's going to make a big difference in terms of other animals as well coming out. I haven't really even seen any impalas yet that are just standing around and feeding. Everybody seems to be hiding in the shade. You can see even the elephants are sticking to the shade. Alright, so while I head towards Twin Dams and see if the rest of the herd has come down to drink, I'm going to send you back to Tristan, who has his warthog.
Well, while Tess heads down to Twin Dams, we're just watching impalas and warthogs going about their business. You'll hear that the wind is starting to really howl this afternoon. When we get wind like this, it's often an indicator of a change in weather. So I wouldn't be surprised some cooler weather is on its way. It generally blows like this when a cold front is coming, but it's cool to watch our little warthogs feeding on their knees. You can see all three of them at the moment. They've got the typical warthog posture down. The pro impalas, they have to stretch a little bit. You can see the difference in the feeding styles between the two quite clearly there. Impalas got to put their head down and kind of bend, whereas the warthog's a lot more comfortable, and because their food, a lot of it at this time is tubers and roots, it makes much more sense for them to go onto their knees like this, and eventually the knees callus to the point like the soles of your feet. If you walk around barefoot for many hours, you'll soon develop quite hard soles to your feet, and their knees just get that callousing, and they doesn't really feel that bad for them. So it's comfortable, they don't have to stretch too much, and that nose can actually get down, and that disc-like snout is going to expose what they're looking for, and they can then get what they need. If they were to stay standing, it would be a lot harder to access the roots that they're looking for. So yeah, you'll see this behavior, and like I said, it's more common in the winter months. You see it a lot in winter, warthogs feeding like this. In summer, there's a little bit more food that's slightly higher up, so they don't need to try and eat grass seeds and things like that bending like this. They can actually stand up pretty straight and feed. But all three of these are quite young animals. None of them are big old warthogs. In fact, it looks like all three of these, well, especially the two on the left, would have been maybe last year's piglets. The one on the right looks as though it's pregnant at the moment. You see the size of the stomach, quite big. So potentially mother, and then the two that she raised last year, and she's got new ones on the way. All right, we'll sit here with these guys. I always enjoy watching warthogs. We'll see what they get up to while they root around. It's actually nice to see now that we are getting the pregnant sort of bellies on the females. You can see that impala in the background. She's also got a nice big tummy, and then the warthog in the foreground too. I'm not going to zoom in any closer, even though we can. With this wind that's blowing the way it is, you can see there's a slight wobble on the camera, and when there's a wobble like that, it causes a little bit of pixelation to take place. So we'll just try and kind of keep everything a little kind of wider, just so that we don't have break up in the quality of the image with the animals around the dam. It's just going to mean that we're going to have to be a little bit careful as we go this afternoon. Unfortunately, also, these guys are starting to head behind a little tree, so we're not going to have them for too much longer. We're going to eventually lose sight of them because the tree that the dam cam is actually mounted on is where they're heading, which isn't ideal. But you can really see actually now that I see it, the two impalas at the back. So if you've got the ones, not the one on the far right, but the two that have got their heads down feeding, you can actually see the difference in stomach sizes. The one at the back is looks like a little female. Is it a little female? Yeah, a little female, maybe from the last lambing season. And then this is an older female, and you can see how small her tummy is in comparison to the female in the front. She's going to give birth soon. Well, we know soon, it's going to be 2 months' time, but she will give birth, whereas the other one won't produce a baby this year. Warthog seems to have found a lot of food in that area. It's been a very productive little section, this, because of how open it is, finding a lot of the animals spending quite a lot of time on this little clearing, just staying out of the way of the predators. But I'm surprised they're all in the sun, though. It's just hot out there. I would have expected them to be feeding in the shade rather than the sunshine. All right, well, we'll continue to watch and scan. Hopefully we'll get other things coming down towards the water.
So the rest of the elephant herd has indeed come down to the dam, and there are more coming still in drips and drabs. It's definitely the right time for elephants to be applying a bit of protection from the sun and the heat today. So it seems as though as the herd is filtering through, some are finishing up and leaving, and the next ones are coming in. It is quite a large herd. And you can imagine on a day like today, when it's so hot, it is vital that elephants get enough water. And so that's actually why there are so many at the moment on Djuma, because of the large volumes of water compared to some of the other properties. A big bull elephant will drink up to 150 liters of water in a day. Wow, that wind has picked up out of nowhere. So it's definitely going to be a combination. You'll notice one of the first things that they do is splash themselves just to cool off. And then they might drink to quench their thirst, and then they splash themselves again before they leave. So this is actually all adult females with some calves. And even the little one is having some fun at the dam this afternoon. So you can imagine, with all of the folds in an elephant's skin, it holds a massive amount of water as the water sinks into each little wrinkle. So that's actually vital for an elephant's survival, because with such a large body it becomes incredibly difficult to keep yourself cool. And so that's why you can see the little one, it will spray behind the ears, because that's where the skin is thinnest on the body, to help cool down the blood, and then spray all the way down the sides and the back where there's the largest surface area on the body that's exposed to the sun. Imagine how difficult it would be to try and keep yourself cool if your skin was so thick. It can be up to 4 and a bit centimeters thick in some places on an elephant. Looks like the one in front is actually just having a power nap in the water. Green pearl elephants can lose weight when it is incredibly dry, if they're not finding enough food, but they are incredibly resourceful as well. So I haven't seen or heard of an obvious change in weight between summer and winter months. you might find they might just be a little bit more active. Elephants are not quite the same as us, where if we're inactive we put on weight. Elephants are active all the time, and so it would be very difficult for them to put on weight, unless of course it's a growing youngster, in which case it would definitely be putting on weight as it's growing. I think the biggest difference is, they actually just tend to have to move a lot further distances in the winter when it's dry. And so by covering more ground, they're burning a bit more energy just to try and get the basic nutrients. So there might be a difference in energy usage, but I don't think there'd be a massive difference in weight. In fact, where that would actually show would be if it is an incredibly dry season and the mother is struggling to get enough nutrients, she wouldn't be able to produce very nutritious milk, and that might be a massive difference to see if the calf isn't getting nutritious milk. It might not grow at the same rate that it should. But all animals in the dry season tend to lose condition, whether it's kudus or zebras or impalas. All animals will lose condition a little bit. I just wouldn't say that they lose a massive amount of weight. It is also very handy that as an elephant you could eat almost any plant. So it's interesting, the first elephant that was here is still standing in the same position, more or less. Not really drinking, not really splashing, just standing in the water with its trunk hanging in. She looks pregnant. She's got a very, very big belly. She's got quite large memories as well, so I think she might be quite late in her pregnancy. So now what you'll probably find they'll do is actually head down into the drainage line where it's nice and cool with the shade. So you don't really want to stand out in the sun once you've just wet your body or had a mud bath, because you can imagine the sun is going to dry it out faster. The best place is actually going to be in the shade where the wind is helping that water evaporate, and that will cool your body down a lot better than the sun. I wonder what they're smelling. Quinn elephants will float in the water, but they can actually swim. They're not, the best swimmers of all the animals, but they definitely can swim. They know that if they move their legs, they can move around. Luckily, they are so big that they very rarely get to a watering hole that is so deep that they would have to swim from one side to another. But they definitely do enjoy the water. That being said, it's not as though they're going to drown if they fall into the water hole. They can actually move themselves around quite well. I think the biggest concern would actually be the mothers worrying about the calves if the dam is a bit deep. So there are elephants that are filtering through the background all the time, coming down towards the drainage line and the dam. I think it is going to stay like that for the rest of the afternoon at all of the watering holes, because it is unbelievably hot today. This will also then affect all of the other animals' movements, because elephants at a watering hole can be very intimidating to other animals. But at the same time, their movements through the drainage lines are going to affect predators. They're going to affect other animals looking for shade. That little calf is suckling. And as is, I think it is so hot that it's going to take quite a long time before the other animals start moving at all. There aren't even many birds out. I think it's just too hot. Birds are probably lying in the shade and doing a little bit of a gaping motion where they open their beaks to try and cool off. Yeah, I definitely think that second female is pregnant. Have a look at the difference in her profile to the profile on the female on the right, who's already got that calf that's probably just on 2 years old. So she'll be getting pregnant again, the one on the right, where the one on the left, you can see her stomach is hanging very low and her mammary glands are filling up. So I'm sure she's quite late or far along in her pregnancy. Might also be why she's a little bit more attached to the water hole, because she knows she needs to produce milk already. She's growing a whole nother life. So water is even more important for her than the other females at this point. She's actually hanging quite low, so I wouldn't be surprised if she gives birth in the next 2 weeks. Mia, yes, the baby's tusks can poke the mother while they're suckling. Usually, though, tusks only really start to come in between 2 and 3 years old. You'll start seeing the little tips of the tusks. You can imagine, though, that would be quite uncomfortable for mom. However, when the tusks are short, they're quite blunt and stubby to start off with. And so where the mammary glands are, the positioning of the baby's mouth when it's suckling is quite high up, and so it should miss the mom, although when they get longer it might be a problem. That being said, most of the elephants that have big enough tusks to poke their moms with while they're suckling shouldn't really be suckling anymore. So as they get longer, they should be weaned. But I have seen a good few teenage elephants that take a chance while mom is pregnant again, before she gives birth or just after she gives birth, and they try to suckle, and then I can imagine that would be very uncomfortable. It's very similar to lions and leopards when they start weaning their cubs, because you can imagine those little teeth are like knives. I'm definitely going to have a look and see, because it looks like there are some more elephants that are filtering back in again from the drainage line and from the crest of the other drainage line too.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
We're in the center of the reserve. It's a much more open area, so a completely different experience. It's also in the afternoon, so just a little bit hot, shall we say. We're following some lion tracks, and then we found the scat of a lion cub. So we didn't see the lions, but we decided to leave the area. It was getting a bit too dense and a bit too thick. So we've come all the way down to the water hole to have a little break, and then we're going to keep walking and see what else we can find. And TJ himself actually reminded us at the start of the walk that when you're on the vehicle, it's all about observing. But when you're on a walk, it's all about immersing yourself in nature, being part of the ecosystem. And that's exactly what happened today.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth.
daily.
Well, we've been sitting at the dam cam just watching this hoopoe going about its business. It's actually been really cool to watch them. They're quite flighty birds. They typically don't stick around for long, but this particular pair, there's actually two here, we've just got the one at the moment, have been super accommodating. I think I've had them for the last sort of 7 or 8 minutes, watching them using that long beak to probe for insects. And they're looking for little crickets or any insects that are hidden in the grass. You can see how they push that whole long beak down, and then they're able to find what they're looking for. Sorry, they move quite quickly when they want to. Most of their feeding has not been in the sun, so it's quite nice to see this one out in the sunshine. Very, very pretty little birds with the orange and the black and white, and that little crest that's so diagnostic for them. They're a beautiful little bird, are African hoopoes. Like I say, well, something that we don't get great visuals on all the time, just based off the fact that they are quite flighty, and typically when a car or something comes along, they fly up and try and hide away and then come back down once you've left. So these are really nice views of a bird that we don't always get that often. But this pair must be close by in terms of its nesting areas and its roosting areas. I've had them every dam cam shift. I've seen them briefly, sometimes longer than others. Today we're getting a good show because all the impalas and warthogs got pushed off by the ellies, so the area where they like to feed is devoid of other animals. You can hear that wind is starting to blow now. I wonder where the other one is. It was around here just now. Oh, there we go. Got something that it's feeding on. What are you eating? The wind is just not helping with the ability to focus. Let's try if we get a little bit closer. No, that's not working. There's definitely something there that it's found though. That it's eating, but with this wind, it's just the quality of the image is so poor when we go too close, because it's just constantly moving the camera, so the camera is really struggling to focus. There it comes again. I think it wants to come back into the shade. Too hot in the sun for this little hoopoe, so it's going to try and move its way back into the little shady areas. Jerome, the African part is because it occurs here. There's also an Eurasian hoopoe, which looks quite similar, but not quite as dark orange as this one. And then the hoopoe part is the call. When they call, they make that sound. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll actually play it for you through my CAP's microphone. Just give me 2 seconds. Alright, so here we go. So that sound essentially is saying hoopoe, hoopoe, and that's where the name came from. They make this very cool call, and you hear it at the moment quite a lot. They've been calling a lot of late. I've actually really been enjoying hearing them. Soon they're going to get drowned out a little bit, and because there's a bird out here that sounds a little bit similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's close, which is a cuckoo. And they come and they start calling in the summer months, and a lot of people kind of don't hear the hoopoe calling over those guys. So yeah, that's where the name comes from. Pretty though, with those black and white markings on the wings. I find them to be very pretty birds. Alright, wind, you can settle down. Let's just have a little quick look while we've been sort of focused on this for so long, if anything's actually come down since we've been watching our hoopoe. Nothing there. Doesn't seem like any animals at least are around. There's a wildebeest herd that is hanging about. They were kind of between Tumbeta and the dam. Sorry guys, I pressed the wrong button. So we'll just quickly scoot around and see if they're still here. Yeah, there they are. So they're slowly coming in now. I expect that they're going to come and have a little drink just now too. It's that time of the day where they'll slowly start to meander and get their way towards water. So I expect them to just kind of feed down like this and then have a quick drink and back up again. They don't normally stick around for long periods of time at the water. They drink and move off pretty quickly, especially if there's quite a few ellies about. Then you start to see them making way for the big pachyderms pretty quick. You can hear that wind. It's really howling, and the wind will actually make life quite tricky from a animal viewing point of view, particularly elephants. They're not huge fans of the wind at all. They even when it's hot like this, will try to stay in drainage line areas, and then they emerge for water and then try and go back into the thickets and get out of the wind. Even though it's hot, the wind is what really irritates them. It affects their hearing, their ability to smell, and puts them on edge a little bit. And Tessa earlier was talking about elephants being a little bit edgy, and that could be a predator around. The other side of that is that could also be wind. Elephants particularly get very twitchy when you got these very heavy gusts of wind like this. They really don't like it at all, as do most of the antelope. You'll find a lot of these antelope are going to be a lot more nervy come the evening, when they can't hear and they feel like their senses are dulled. They've got to be that much more alert than on a calm afternoon. See this little female is just grazing at the moment. Enjoying all the little short grasses that have grown over here. And you'll find when this rains come, the first rains, and I believe there's rains supposed to come, I think, this next weekend. The first decent rains are forecast this next weekend. And once that happens, this will all green up very quickly, particularly this short grass area. And it's going to be almost like a lawn for these animals, and they'll come in en masse to eat that. You'll get a lot of these wildebeest, zebra, even the impalas coming through to utilize that short grass that's green and beautiful, same as on the fire breaks. All right, well, we'll sure our wildebeest herd will come down and drink, so we'll see more of them later, and we'll also just keep having a look around, see what else is lurking. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Tess.
Good luck, Tristan. I really hope that they do come down for a drink for you. I think the dam might get a lot busier a little bit later on. I am doing my daily check on Mrs. Wig in the riverbed. I've left the elephants and I'm actually moving up back towards the area where the leopard tracks were. I thought I must have a Wig to see to this afternoon, and surprised she's on the nest. But she is actually much more awake this afternoon, and I think it's because of the wind. It is much windier today in this drainage line in particular than it has been probably in the last week. You can also see she's positioned herself slightly differently today. I've been trying to work it out. I don't know if she just positioned her wing in a strange way, so you can see those feathers on the opposite wing, so behind her, very clearly with the barring, or if maybe she went out and may have possibly injured herself. I think it's more likely that she's just sitting in a strange position compared to normal. Maybe she came back in a rush. Alright, so I'm going to leave Mrs. Wig to sit on. Maybe Mr. Wig is around to look after her.
Tess leaves Mrs. Wig. You can see we're with some ellies again. You can hear them actually walking past. It amazes me how sensitive this microphone is. It picks up sound so well. There is another herd that's on its way at the moment into the area. I wonder why they don't stop in the shade for a little bit. I suppose they've got a mission to go and do and things to go and eat and find. The rest of the herd you'll see is just on the right side of the frame there, just hanging out of view. They're slowly kind of feeding their way through those thickets. It looks like they're heading up towards Tumbeta side. They might bend down and around here, so go drink at Tumbeta and then come and have a mud wallow this side, because Tumbeta's hide and water point doesn't actually have any mud around it, so it's not a great mud wallowing area. But you see how these ellies are heading towards these thicker, denser sections, so they use this road, and then I'm pretty sure they'll eventually start to drop into the Mulawati at some point. They often go down. You see there's a big tall jackalberry behind that big tall dead tree. They often drop in there. There's a big game path that they go on. It's a favorite game path actually of Mulawati. He often walks that one too. But there's the rest of the herd. You can see it just in the distance, and those animals have also already been at water. It might actually be short trunk and the two that have just holed up in this section, and these guys are catching up. It's very, very possible. You can see, look at that foot rocking again. Interesting. Love watching eddies. There's always something about them, you know. A lot of people see elephants and they're like, oh, well, they're quite boring. They just eat and they don't really do much. And I don't know why people have this thing that cats are the ones that do everything. When you actually sit with things like buffalo, elephant, they are so busy all the time. There's always something going on with those animals. They herd animals and they constantly have social interactions. There's movement the whole time. It's very seldom you're going to find elephants or buffalo being stationary for long periods. They drink a lot, so they are busy animals. I never really understand why people find them boring, but will be happy to sit with a pride of sleeping lions for 3 hours and find that's not boring at all. So, you know, it's all relative, I suppose, to what you as a person like. But yeah. All right, well, we'll sit here. I'm sure we're going to get the ellies kind of coming back down for water again. I hope that they will. In the meantime, let's head you back across to Tessa.
So I am heading along the drainage line, and this little steenbuck is lying in the middle of the drainage line, enjoying just about the only decent patch of shade in this whole stretch. And she just looks so comfortable in the soft sand right in the middle of the track. So I thought definitely worthwhile having a decent look at her. You can see how well camouflaged she is because she's in the shade, compared to if she had been in the full sun. You would have seen her beautiful red coat. And yet here she is resting, and it looks like a perfect position, very, very comfortable. So right now she is actually, as much as she's keeping herself cool, she's actually in quite a compromised position in terms of predators, because the drainage line is not very wide. So it's not as though she can see very, very clearly on either side of her. There might be leopards that could stalk right up next to her, and she might not know it because the wind is quite strong. The grass is dry, and so it'll cover up the sound of their approach. She doesn't look too worried about it. Her ears aren't up. She isn't listening for sounds, actively moving her head around. She just looks as though she's really been struggling with the heat today and just needed a bit of a break in the shade. So this might be the most relaxed steenbuck I have ever seen on safari. So this is like the opposite of tanning in the riverbed. It's shading in the riverbed. Literally looks like a statue. It's hardly even moved its face since we parked here. this is actually one of the lucky animals that would not need to move down towards a waterhole regularly on a hot day. Steenbuck is actually very lucky in that sense that it can relax in the shade to stay cool, and when it needs more water it can simply eat plants that have more water in them. I have never seen a steenbuck drinking. I have seen one eating the greenery around the side of a dam and in the marshy areas, but I've never actually personally seen one drinking. So you can imagine steenbuck's probably one of the luckiest animals, or the most well-adapted animals on days like today, wow, English, where you're not constrained by the water situation. You don't have to move to a water hole and put yourself at risk, where there's going to be a lot of other animals, there's going to be predators that are attracted as well. You can actually relax a little bit of a distance away, not having to worry too much about it. I think that's the first time she's properly moved her head. Sarah, she definitely could be pregnant. You can see her belly is quite rounded. There in front of her back leg, she's got a very well-rounded belly. So she very well might be pregnant. It is, very, very likely, especially the comfortable position she's chosen. You can imagine that belly is going to be a lot more comfortable on the soft sand than on the hard grass or bank. But she very, very well could be pregnant. I don't know where her partner is. If you can see one steenbuck, the other one should be around. But I haven't seen it. What's interesting about steenbuck as well is, even though they are territorial and they do tend to stick together, a lot of the time you'll find they might not be right next to each other. They might only check on each other, say, once or twice a day. And then the rest of the time they're a good few meters apart, sometimes on opposite ends of the territory even. Because as much as they are monogamous and territorial as a couple, they also really like their space. So she has made herself incredibly comfortable in the riverbed here. I am noticing some movements on the sides of the bank as well. So there are some Ngala that have been filtering through. There's still an elephant in the thickets as well. So she's chosen quite a well-populated spot, which is great because she's got extra eyes and ears to look out for those predators. Very interesting observation as well. This female on her own, I've been seeing a lot of pairs of males recently. They won't be monogamous pairs. They'll be possibly fathers and sons or friends. But it's been very interesting to see how many male steenbuck have been sticking together recently. I've probably seen 3 or 4 different pairs now in different areas where there's 2 males together and no female. She definitely does look like she has a extensively large stomach. Napchick, I guess she might be in labor. We wouldn't really be able to tell unless we could actually see contractions or see her moving and starting to really, push out the baby. From what I've seen, even looking through my binoculars, I can't see anything at the back end. I can't see any sign of a baby coming out. She just looks as though she's relaxing. Bear in mind it is, well over 30 degrees Celsius today, so I think I would also be absolutely exhausted and lying in the riverbed in the shade if I was pregnant and needing to escape the heat. She's not breathing very heavily, which tells me she probably isn't having contractions. So you can usually see when an animal is having contractions. It might breathe quite heavily. You might see that there are natural movements that are happening. So those contractions cause the rest of the body to react. The legs might move. You might find that she just repositions her pelvis a bit. And I haven't seen anything like that. She's been incredibly still. So I reckon if she could be in labor, she might actually just be in the very, very early stages where the contractions are not so severe yet, but maybe she can feel them coming. She does look very far along. She has got quite a big belly. It would be interesting to see though if she actually did get up. I'd love to see what she looks like while she's standing. So I'm definitely going to spend just another minute or so with her just to see if she moves, because there is a bit of activity around us with that elephant and some nyalas. And I'm hoping I get to see her standing up, because then at least I can make a proper once-over look at her. She looks very, very relaxed though, so I somehow don't think there's a baby that's about to pop out there. Also feel like she would go somewhere a lot thicker with more cover if she was in labor. But it would be absolutely amazing to see. I've never seen a steenbuck give birth because they're so secretive. Oh, she looks like she wants to get up. Nope, just repositioning. She is chewing, so she's definitely aiding with her own digestion there, re-chewing her food. Scratching. Got a bit of an itchy spot on the inside of the thigh. Yeah, she really does look absolutely fine. I think just like us, just kind of trying to relax a little bit in the shade, and we are. I think we would be doing the exact same thing. So I'm actually not going to carry on up this riverbed because I don't want to make her move from her very comfortable position. She looks like she is way too relaxed in the shade there.
Well, we're still with the Ellies, and while we're not in person with them, I always enjoy just watching elephants and spending time around them. And I suppose in this way it's kind of around them, isn't it? I mean, I can hear them every now and then, you can see them, and so always a pleasant way to spend the afternoon. They're such incredible creatures, and like I say, I don't get when people don't want to spend time with elephants. I find them so intriguing to watch, and there's so many different things about elephants. I suppose maybe actually the more time you spend with them, the more you notice. If you don't spend a lot of time with Ellies, it's like, well, elephants feeding, not really much to it. But if you're interested in the natural world and behavioral aspects of their day, watching what they feed on, how they feed on it, those are what the parts that become interesting. So what are they utilizing at any given time during the course of the year becomes a fascinating insight into their lives. So, you know, we go from the grasses of the summer periods, and specific grasses at that, to the winter periods where early winter it's still kind of grass, and there's a little bit of the leaves / bark, and then as you get into late winter, so the trees that they're accessing change. They would have gone through a phase now where they would have eaten a lot of knobthorn flowers. Now they're seemingly targeting jackalberries at the moment, and I can't work out why. I've never really noticed that behavior before, but these bulls that have been around in the last few weeks have all been at jackalberry trees and feeding off them and breaking quite big branches off to eat. I can't see what they're eating at the moment. It's just a little far to be picking it up. They don't typically eat guarries, although the guarries are flowering at the moment. quarry bush, as well as the spike thorns, have very small flowers, so you don't really notice them. They're also kind of greeny white, so they blend in really well. So maybe they're after that, but I really can't make out what that tree is. It's just too far and just too nondescript to figure out what they're feeding on. But what you'll find is that as we go now, and as soon as we get those rains, they're going to start accessing certain things. We're going to go into a period where things are going to flower and create an opportunity for them to get very sweet, nectar-filled little flowers, so they'll eat those. Sometimes find them kind of picking up the little gardenia flowers if they find them, if they're still fresh. So yeah, they have a whole diet change, and you only notice those things if you actually spend time in their company. The other side is that they've got very, very, very interesting social bonds and cues. And we were talking earlier about the way that they move their feet and trunks and tails, and how that's all communication for members within the herd as well as to external animals. And that kind of behavior is only witnessed when long-term observation takes place. So for me, being in a fortunate position to have spent a lot of time in the bush, that becomes the interesting part of it, more so than that it's just an elephant. It's what is it doing at that particular moment, and what can you learn from that that I find fascinating. I think your intuition and your ability to find animals gets sharper and better the more you start to look into those things. When you can understand that at a certain period of the year, let's say February, March, we know there's going to be marula fruits, and you want to see an elephant, well, then to go and look for marula trees on crests, and generally you're going to find them there. This time of the year, hot day, and there's very little food, generally is going to be close to water, because water has drainage lines, which generally has evergreen trees, and there's food sources that they can find out of that. So those kind of things help you when you're finding or you're looking for animals, and when you're tracking. If you know the time of the year and you know what they're looking for, your tracking gets much easier, because okay, I'm going to track an elephant and it's February. I know, let me just go from marula tree to the marula tree and I'll pick up its tracks. Even if I lose them somewhere in the block, I know that marula tree coming up is a place that it's going to stop. It's not going to bypass the opportunity to find free food and easily available food that's full of nutrient value. So then how to kind of find the animal at the time of the year, and that's only because you've watched them and learned from them during that period. If you're going to just rush past every single elephant that you see, if you're in, let's say, a self-driving Kruger, you're never going to start to understand the process and understand where and when certain animals will be, and how they will behave in those times. And that goes for everything. It's not just elephants, it's anything and everything that is around. All right, those ellies are still feeding. I just want to quickly check the wildebeest just to see they haven't come down to drink yet. No, they're all just milling about still. Let's have a quick scan of the water hole as well, just in case anything has come that way. Sometimes get giraffe kind of sneaking up on us, kudu, nyalas, those kinds of things. No, nothing there. White man, you're asking if I know anything interesting about the brain of the elephant. In what respect? I mean, it's obviously their brains are big, so that's already one part of elephants that make them fascinating for us as humans, because their brain size, in many ways, it's not quite the same in percentage as our body size, but it mimics our brain in terms of the actual dimensions, which means that it's got a huge ability to have cognitive thinking and process not only an ability to survive, but emotional things, to be able to problem solve, to sort out complexities within their environment, which makes it fascinating for us to watch and to witness, and to be able to see, because we can draw lots of parallels and similarities in their behavior and their social structures due to this big brain, in what we do as people. So there's that side of it. In terms of just kind of structurally, not really anything that's too mind-boggling and different from what any other mammal has. It's a pretty similar function that the brain has in an elephant than all the other mammals, including ourselves. What is interesting with them is because of their size and the life that they lead, particularly the bulls, they're going to be clashing heads at times. The brain has actually got to be in a place where it's not going to get damaged. So their brain sits through a huge amount of bone density in front of it. So you've got probably about 30 centimeters of bone in front coming towards the eyes, and the brain will actually sit 30 centimeters kind of backwards. So the brain is almost between the ears. So if you look at where the ear attaches to an elephant, and hopefully they'll come a bit closer and we can kind of show you what I'm talking about. But if you look at where the brain, the ears attached to the actual head of the elephant, there's the little holes where the sound goes in, and the brain is directly there. And you actually draw a kind of line coming forward to the front of the forehead. You realize how far back that brain is set, just to reduce any potential issues from fighting or headbutting a tree or anything like that. The brain is very well protected in that area, and because it needs to be so well protected, that causes structural changes within the elephant's skeletal system. So unlike most animals that will have pretty solid bone mass, elephant heads have to be honeycombed, so very structurally sound. And if any of you have ever seen cardboard or any box that you get something delivered in, if you cut that box, you'll see that that's the kind of way that they do it, is they have structurally very strong, because it's got these little points within it that hold the two sheets up, but there's lightness in there through the fact that it's not a solid structure between those two outer sheets of cardboard or paper. And so it's the same for them. It's a massively reduced weight that they have over their skull. If they had to have solid bone on the skull, it would be too heavy. They wouldn't be able to pick it up. They wouldn't be able to do the things that they do. So that honeycombed effect provides the strength to protect the brain, but at the same time also allows the animal to be pretty mobile and move around and lift its head and do all kinds of other things. What's interesting though within the brain, within the head structure, and it's always so nice when we find skulls and you can get people off vehicles and you can show them skulls. It's one of my favorite things to do with guests in terms of elephants particularly. If you can get the whole structure of the head, so if you can get the head and the lower jaw of a elephant skull, it's absolutely fascinating to feel the weight difference between those. The top part of the head is massive, it's big, it's got the brain, it's got the way the tusks come out, the eyes, the entrance for the trunk, so it's huge, and it looks impressive. And when you pick it up, it's actually far lighter than you realize. I mean, there's weight to it, obviously. It's not small, but it's much, much, much lighter than most people think. And then what you do is you take the lower jaw and you ask people to pick that up, and often the lower jaw weighs just as much as the rest of that skull. So the top part of the skull and the lower jaw are actually pretty similar, even though the lower jaw is maybe 1/8, in fact less, the size of the skull. And the reason why that lower jaw is the way that it is because when these guys are taking in vegetation, so big branches, anything like that, they've got to have an ability to crunch it down. And so if the lower jaw was built the same way as the rest of the skull, there wouldn't be enough force and power applied to actually break down those large branches. And so the lowest jaw is actually much more solid and far less honeycombed, and that provides the force necessary to then break branches and to be able to strip cambium and all the other things that elephants do. It's pretty fascinating when you feel those things, and I find looking at the anatomy of elephants and the skull setup and the skeletal structure of this animal absolutely amazing. It's just everything is so big and so large that you can get a really kind of an appreciative view of how amazing it is that this animal is able to survive the way that it does, and how everything on that head is perfect for the ability to do what it does. So feeding, drinking, protection of the brain, which is what led us down this road, as well as any sort of movements that it needs to do, is all kind of thought of and all sort of part of the whole process with an elephant. And and that's true of every animal. It's not just elephants, it's pretty much everything that is that way. Just let's see if we can actually get some more ellies on, given that we're talking about them. Seems like a nice big herd is here. A lot of them coming from Tibet, and I'm hoping they're going to bend around and come and have a nice drink at the dam, and we'll get to see them. Anyway, we'll be patient and see whether they do, but thank you for that question. I always love these in-depth questions. It makes for really in-depth discussions, which is fascinating for us as guides, as well as hopefully you guys at home.
We had a very exciting start to our morning this morning. Today, it's our guided sunrise safari with Mike, and we started by looking at the moon through a telescope, which was incredible. It's been a very different drive from all the other ones, very interactive.
Uropigeal gland is something the Hoopoes have in common.
Hi. This morning's drive with Mike was thoroughly enjoyable. He really engaged us, but we also did some birding, and I managed to add a few new birds onto my list. Overall, every single experience with all the competitors has been really incredible, but it's up to the judges now.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is the call of desperation with a cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops. Oof.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
I love being a cam up for WildEarth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
Good afternoon, WildEarth, and welcome to this beautiful afternoon here in Cape Town on the Atlantic seaboard. My name's Devon. We're joining you here from Cozy Bay. Jason's behind the camera, doing all the magic. And we've come down here. We know that there's the little seal colony around the corner here, and a whole variety of different animal life that we can show to you from this part of the world, which is quite different to all the other parts of the world that we'll be showing you. I'm really excited to have a look around here, explore a little bit, see what we can find. We started off by actually doing a little bit of rock climbing and getting involved in a slightly different kind of direction of movement to try find any other little interesting things. So far we haven't found too much yet, but it is a magnificent day. The clouds were pretty thick earlier on. It's opened up a little bit now, and beautiful, beautiful light streaming through here. And it's actually gone from being quite cold to quite warm. I took my jacket off about 10 or 15 minutes ago, post climbing over all of these boulders to get through here. So don't expect to see me standing on this here granite anytime soon. It was a bit of a mission to get here, but it was very cool, and it's offered us this really unique kind of view into this part of Cozy Bay, and really gives you quite a unique perspective on all these different granite boulders. And I'm going to talk about them quite a lot. And I know the other day when I came to you from here, and when Trish comes to you from here, we talk about this Cape Town granite. And the reason for that, and you can really see it nicely from this angle, is how large granite is. 4 or 5 meters tall, It's wide, it's broad, but quite rounded and angular. It makes these beautiful kind of scapes you find here, because this is the underlying geology here, vivid granite that comes from these rocks. And these rocks continue, so it doesn't just stop here where the water starts, they continue underwater and into the kelp forest that lies beyond. We are going to carry on rock climbing to get out of this little spot we've gotten ourselves into. But we're going to say cheers to you for now. We'll be back shortly as soon as we find something interesting and exciting to talk about.
Yes, I certainly hope that you find something interesting, Dev. I am actually having a look. I'm on one of our cut lines here, coming to the southwestern corner, and there are tracks of lions actually coming in on top of vehicle tracks from this morning. So I think there were some lions moving, which is a bit weird in the heat of the day. But I'm actually going to go and check. I'm going to turn back in towards Djuma just now, and I would just want to check where those lion tracks go, because they look like they're heading straight up towards Impala Plains area. And I'm wondering who it could be, maybe part of the Talamatis. So I'm just checking very carefully to make sure the tracks haven't cut back out. I'm going to be checking very, very slowly up the cut line, just because I know this is going to be the easiest place to almost make them, because it's quite thick on both sides of the road. So with all the very interesting dynamics happening, I know that every time, or recently anyway, that the line dynamics have been a little bit weird. So it would be very interesting to see whose tracks those are. But I'm going to send you over to Tristan while I continue my search, just to go and have a look at a wildebeest on the dam cam.
It'll be very interesting to find out, Tess, who they are. There's been a lot of movement of the lions, as obviously dynamics, as Tess is referring to, are a little bit upside down at the moment, with new males around and male around, and the movement of the Talamatis and Nkuhumas and the splits that are taking place therein. Whether or not those are going to be permanent, or that's how things will actually unfold, is anyone's guess. But it's nothing new to the Sabi sands. The lions of the sands, particularly this northern area, have been pretty interesting to follow over the past, I would say, probably 15 years, because it's been very unsettled. It's never actually gotten to a point where it's been completely like, everything is hunky-dory for a few months. And I don't think any pride of lions really is that way. The nature of lions and the way that they go about their business means that they're going to get into a situation where they're going to be upheavals and changes and environmental sort of things that influence the way that they do what they do. So, it's nothing really that new, but this area has had a hugely unsettling kind of few years. If I think back to when I first came up into the northern Sabi sands, it was just as the Mapocho-Majingalan fight had taken place, and it was kind of that little era when the Majingalans were just starting to take over the prides. At that time, there were two male lions that were with the Nkuhuma pride, and so the Nkuhuma pride actually spent most of their time just on the northern sides of Buffelshoek, but mostly Manyeleti. Didn't spend a huge amount of time coming south of that into Djuma. And then, at that time, it was actually what the pride that we used to see the most was the sticks, and then on Djuma side, actually more than that was the current Mangen adults with the original tailless female from the Salalas. That was actually the pride that we saw a lot of. And then, the Mopochos, there was still the one that was up here, Mr. T, and he then left, and the Majinglans took over. And then, from that, we started to see changes with the Torchwood starting to come in. We started to see then a pride called the Four Ways Pride come through, and then Styx and Nkuhumas, and that became a little bit more settled through the Majinglan, Matimba, reign. The Birminghams then came in, and they actually were the ones that really dragged the Nkuhumas a lot further south, to where they spent a lot of time on Djuma. They had the cubs on Djuma, and then of course the Evokers came in, and the Nkuhumas have moved south, and the Telematis, and now we've got this S8 male. And so it's always the males that are causing the flux, and this northern area has had a long history of male lions coming in from other places. It's quite cool to see how pregnant this female is. And they've disrupted things because they've come in at quite regular intervals. So what you would ideally like with lions is that you want male lions to be able to come in, to be able to dominate, produce cubs, raise those cubs to maturity, and potentially even then the next set, which is not always the case. But in this area, what we've had over the past few years is that every time males come in, they sire cubs, and then it becomes this issue of new males arriving before those cubs are fully fledged, and cubs get killed, and the prides then were negatively being affected, so the numbers were declining rather than increasing, and we ended up with lower numbers in our prides. But what's happened over the Birmingham and Evoker periods is that they've managed to hold on and successfully raise cubs, and the prides have had positive growth. The reality of that also is that we have had a drought, which is always going to positively affect predator numbers, huge availability of food, and that always makes things a lot easier in terms of raising offspring. But the males still have to be territorial enough and long enough to protect those offspring and allow them to flourish and grow. So yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, if I think of the time that I've spent in the Sabi Sands, which granted is quite a lot, but we've had Mopocho, Majingalan, Matimba. There was the two Ottawa males that were around for a while. We had the Styx male. We've had Gari males, which is what they were called, the ones that were to the north. Then we had the Birminghams, the Evokers. Plains Camp have come through here. There's lots of different male lions, and that's all in the space of the last sort of 10, 11 years, which is pretty crazy. All right, I haven't given these wildebeest much in the way of attention, talking about lions, they'd probably be shuddering, but we'll keep paying attention, seeing what else makes its way down towards the dam cam.
Welcome back to Cape Town, everyone. So awesome to see that penguin sequence. A little bit of a teaser for a new show that WildEarth has got coming. Of course, as we came across back to us now, we've got waves crashing at my feet here. So I hope it's not too noisy, but we really are in the mix here. To chat to you a little bit about that show that myself, Trish and Jason have been working really hard on the last week or so, maybe a little bit longer, conceptually quite a lot longer. And these cormorants that we're looking at now, bridge between penguin and story told from the location where the penguins are. There are breeding colonies of cormorants, which is really, really exciting. we are going to send you back across to Tristan, and for now we'll keep moving around and looking for any other exciting little bits to show you.
While Trish is moving around the rocks and looking at cormorants, we have a plethora of animals on the slope leading up to the dam. So there's impalas, wildebeest, elephant, lots of oxpeckers that are around too, which are such amazing little birds. I love watching oxpeckers. We'll try to see if we can get some cool shots of them. It'll be nice if the impalas come a little closer, because if they come right underneath the camera, the other day I was having such fun watching the oxpeckers. I was kind of zooming in right in tight to them. You could actually see them combing through the fur as they were looking for parasites. There we go. You see them doing it? You can actually see the little beak marks that they leave in the fur when they do it. Pretty fascinating to watch. You can imagine how many little parasites they're picking up. I read a study where they reckon that these little oxpeckers can pick up as many as 1,000 ticks in a day off the animals that they spend time around, which is fascinating to me. I mean, a lot of those ticks are not big. They're not massive ticks. We're talking like little pepper ticks and things like that. But still, if they're not doing that, can you imagine how overloaded a lot of these animals will be? What are you eating, impala? It's a pod of some sort. Is it, or a bone? Is it eating a bone? It looks like it might be eating a bone. So it's quite common to see antelope eating bones. Well, not eating them, but chewing on them and sucking on them. It's a part of gaining nutrient value that they can't get from their diet. So calcium in particular. So they kind of put the little bone in their mouth and chew it and bite it, and eventually it drops out again, and then they absorb from there. Shame, girl, are you not enjoying all these impalas? Must be so irritating and so itchy. Imagine their little claws just digging in. Fascinating though to watch. I find it so interesting that we get to see these kind of behaviors in wildlife. Very cool. There's little warthogs too. So we've got elephant, warthog, wildebeest and impala. It's all happening this afternoon. A nice big herd of ellies that's coming down. I think they're coming down the slope straight to the waterhole, which is going to be nice. Hopefully they'll all stop and kind of drink at the waterhole itself, and we'll get some nice kind of close views. I also can hear something on the microphone right below the camera here, so I'm just going to quickly have a little look. Maybe it's an impala or a squirrel. Squirrels like to hang around in this little area. Just check around quickly. Maybe it's the impalas that are coming in on this side over here. Okay, everybody's moving around. I'm going to just turn the camera to the water point in question, because I'm pretty sure everybody's heading to this section over here. Eventually they should come around. I still think there's something below. There we go. There's something below the camera. Hey guys. Now, there's a very unique view of an impala. This is not something you're going to get very regularly in life. Is the top end view, and you can actually see how thin their little necks are when you look at it from this angle. Most of the time we view these animals from a broad side, but from here you can see kind of how thin the neck is, and why a lot of the time the predators can get their mouth around it and grip it there, and why when leopards hoist impalas and those kinds of things, is that's their grip point. They can get a really nice solid hold around that thin neck and then take it up from there. You see how it's trying to get to this little bit of green growth that's growing in underneath the vegetation. This is so cool. Well, we're about to have a very cool sighting, I think, with all the animals coming up towards the water. I'm hoping everybody's going to come and drink. We'll just be patient and see how it goes. So cool to be able to hear this impala feeding below us. I just want to quickly check where the other one went, so that we can see if maybe we've got any oxpeckers on that one, because it would be nice if they're this close. No, nothing as yet. Alright, ellies, where are you? They should also be coming through fairly shortly. You can see this is the tree on the left side of the frame that the camera's mounted on, so not easy for us to be able to actually watch the ellies come all the way through, so we'll just watch these guys for a little bit longer. So nice just to hear them like feeding and moving around underneath the camera. I'm worried we're going to miss these ellies at some point. Actually, I just want to quickly have a scan back around just to see where all the elephants are. Here they come. They're coming quite quickly now towards the water. It's going to be so nice if they all come round on this little pan. Sorry if I'm making everybody dizzy. I apologize profusely. Some happy ellies to find some fresh water, I think, on a hot afternoon. There's a little baby, cute man. Seems like the wind has also settled right down. It's kind of blown itself out a little bit, which is nice. All right, we'll watch our ellies drink, which will be really spectacular. I'm thoroughly going to enjoy it. Well, ellies have made their way down to our little water point here and are going to have a little drink. We should get quite a few of them coming down. There was initially just the 4 that I saw kind of running this way, but the herd is much bigger than that. There's quite a number of them in this area. Look at the little baby. Very, very cute. The nice thing is the wind doesn't seem to be nearly as bad as well. Let's try to see if we can get in a little bit closer to this little one. Sometimes you'll see that they kind of push their trunk into the mouth of their moms. Isn't that cute? It'd be nice if they line up around the other side. Often what they do is they drink a little bit and then they turn and try and find a different little spot to drink from. Here come the rest now, so we should get a lot coming through. Look how fast they're coming down the hill. Cute, man. You can hear just a little bit of talking as well. So everyone sorts themselves out around the water. Sure, they're loving the fact that also this pan is a little bit in the shade, so it's not that hot where they're sitting at the moment. They can have a really nice relaxed drink without being baked by the sun. It's maybe why they waited a little bit before they came down. Should be still quite a number of them coming through. This is not the whole group that I saw. There was a lot more elephants. You can see them throwing water backwards. But you notice how with this they're not as wasteful with this water. This is much cleaner water, so the idea is not to waste this and to throw it too much. They'll do a little bit of the ears and the chest area, but mostly what they're doing is drinking at the moment. They're not wanting to waste valuable clean water. Mostly what they're after is just to actually utilize this water to hydrate rather than to cool down. The mud is below there, so we'll be able to get that a little bit later. But look at this little one. I wonder if it's going to go for a little swim. Isn't that cute? So Renata, a lot of this whole smelling of water thing is a bit of a misconception. They know that water will be found if they follow drainage lines. So it's not so much smelling water. Everybody always says they can smell water and they'll come straight to it. A lot of the times when people say that, what they're actually referring to is pumped water. And what the elephants are responding to is not the smell of water, they're responding to the sound of the pump. So when they hear the pumps running, they know fresh water is coming out. Because if you watch with these pans, and I've seen it here at Djuma, particularly with Galago pan, as soon as the water starts rushing through and into the pan, these elephants are there like a shot. They are constantly kind of coming in as the pan water starts to be pushed in. So it's a hearing thing more than it's a smelling thing. And the distance with that, it's far, because these guys I've seen with Galago pan, I've watched it being turned on and you can see the elephants beelining from Buffelshoek straight down. So I would say easily they're hearing that pump from 2 kilometers away, maybe even more. And then they come in and kind of drink from it. It's the whole notion of smelling water is only very, very close. So when they get close to water, they can smell it, but it's not this long distance thing that everybody thinks. That's more hearing than anything else. And finding of water from long distances is just following drainage lines that will eventually lead you to a point where water can be dug for, or a dam or something like that in this area. Let's see if we can get her playing with the water again. She just protects her little one. Where are you going, Mum? Yeah, she's just sniffing there. You can see it's been windy too. You see in the eyes, they've got that white secretion. Often see it when it's been windy. They're getting a lot of dust in the eyes. So the eyes start to water a little bit. I mean, I don't know if you've ever spent time in very windy days and you look into the wind, your eyes start to feel as though they are drying out. And so that's just lubricating the eye. Look at her squirting water. Don't waste. I've just been saying that you've been so good about wasting, and now you're just spraying it all over your feet. Oh, come on, camera. Don't. You can see really nicely those toenails that protect the front of the foot on these guys when they're walking. It's a nice little view of those big feet that they have and the way that the trunk works. You see how it's just sniffing as they come around. I'm sorry the camera movement's a bit jerky. It's unfortunately not a smooth exercise to do it like this, especially when you're close in on details of feet and trunks. But it's amazing that we can do this from a remote camera and kind of get these kind of views of elephants as they drink. She's coming straight towards us now. Isn't this magic though? I absolutely love spending time with these guys around a waterhole. There's something so incredibly relaxing about being, if you get to park there and just listen to the sounds of the water dribbling from their trunks and just being around them. There's often lots of little grumbles and groans that take place when they are drinking at a little pan like this. And see, I'm pretty sure this is just a little family group on its own. You'll notice when they drink, that's very true. I was about to say you'll see when they drink, and I'll get to that just now, but their feet do often resemble Uggs in a way. Very bulky and wide, and I think it would actually, maybe if you Uggs made a pair of elephant toed shoes, it would be quite cool. I'm sure people would buy that. Hey guys, you can see, look at all the social little touching and movements that are going on. That little one's going to try and suckle. Oh, the rest of the family feeds. Drinks, sorry. But I was saying when they drink, unfortunately, none of them are really doing it right now, but when they take a sipful in their trunk, when you see it bends and it will create this half circle, and then they push it and they actually spray the water into their mouth until the last few drops. The last few drops, they're pretty happy to leave out or to drop back into the water, and that's because as the trunk bends, that is the lowest point of the water, and so sediment that is heavy is all falling into that bend of the trunk, and so they don't actually want to drink the sediment, so then they push the sediment back out and into the water itself, and that allows them to not have to drink sand and those kinds of things. Isn't this cool though? It's a pretty intimate view of Ellie's from a dam cam. Look at the little one rubbing its ear on its mom's leg. It's almost like a little ear hug that it's giving. That's so sweet. Shame that's cute. Alright, well, we'll continue to watch these Ellies and let's see what else they get up to.
RSA has a long history, over 90 years, of being involved and even pioneering aspects of the conservation sector in South Africa. Over that long history, we have realized that all of the issues that we are facing both locally and globally are due to human impact. Therefore, we need to concentrate on working with people, and that is what WESA does. What makes me passionate about the work that we do at WESA, and in particular the work that I engage in, is actually connecting with people. Currently the work that I'm working on is working with youth in a skills development program, and just to meet the youth and to hear their stories and to bring them opportunities that we hope will have some impact on their lives really fuels me to get up every morning. A huge shout out to the women that I work with, as well as to all the women that are contributing hugely within the environmental sector, both in South Africa and in the world.
The scrap here collected a dry grass, put it next to the water hole as the hippo walks down during the warm of the day to drink the water. When the hippo arrives, he saw quite a very nice grass, an area not to resist to rest. And when the hippo went down to drink the water, and when he finished the water, he just lied down on the grass. And then, that was the opportunity of the scrappy. You know what? Today is my day to pay the revenge.
As you can see, the eddies are just starting to now leave the waterhole. Looks like they're going to come right past the underside of the camera, so we'll get another pretty unique view that you don't always get. Unfortunately, I can't wrap around with them because of the tree, but I'll have to go all the way around the other way. Let's see if they do a bit of dust bathing. You sometimes find after a little bit of a drink, they'll start picking up sand on the roads. No, not today. There you go. Alright, so just give me 2 seconds. You're going to see that we're going to look at the tree for 2 seconds as we just watch them come round, so I do apologize. There we go. And then out the other side. I don't know where all the other animals went. There's a lot of animals here pre-elephant drinking. And back to feeding they go. It's a never-ending cycle for these guys. They can't afford to stop feeding. there's such a big body and poor digestive tract that it just is a constant effort to make sure that they sustain themselves. That little one is cute though. Here comes the rest. Brendan, no, I'm sure it could. It anatomically is pretty similar. It would have the ability. Maybe the ears are a little small to cope with the heat, and you know, a lot of those Indian elephants are not in very open areas. So maybe in places where it's a little bit more open and clear, they would struggle a little bit. But I don't see why not. They have ears that work pretty similar way. They have an ability to kind of eat the same as these elephants do. So I think they would be just fine, actually. I don't think they'd have too much of an issue. The problem would be is that they wouldn't know what to eat here. All of this is foreign, so if you could teach a little baby Indian elephant or Asian elephant what to do and how to eat and which plants to go to, I think it would actually probably be okay. It would be very interesting to see if one would actually be accepted into a herd of African elephants, or if they would be, no, this is different, we wouldn't accept it. Of course, you don't want to do stuff like that because it's very stressful on a sentient being like an elephant. So you'd never want to pull one from the Asian countries to come and spend time with some African elephants. It's just interesting to know whether or not that behavior would be something that they would do. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get all the way around with these two, but let's try. There we go, a really nice feed. I'm sure they're happy that the heat of the day is past now. It'll still be warm out there, but it's definitely going to have passed a little bit. It won't be nearly as abusive in nature as it was earlier. And there we go, heading up towards camp. They're coming to terrorize the camp, probably. The elephants have been hectic the last few days with trying to get into camp. They've caused a fair amount of damage and broken fences and gates and all kinds of things as they've tried to come in and eat all the things that are in the camp itself. Now, every now and then, I don't know if you've noticed, some of the elephants pick up their feet and put their trunk underneath their feet. The reason for this is where they're walking at the moment is a very disturbed area, and what grows here a lot of the time is something called a devil thorn. And those devil thorns are pods, little green pods or brown pods if they're dry, with two little spikes, and they stick in the elephant's feet. So you often see when they walk across these clearings that they stop and they put their trunk under their feet, and they actually just taking that little pod off of their foot, and then they drop it back down again and carry on walking. It doesn't hurt them very much. I mean, for us as people, it would be, you know, like one of the most painful things would be like standing on Lego with spikes. And we all know, I don't know if all of you know, but standing on Lego is never a fun experience for anyone. So it would be equivalent to that, essentially. So they just kind of push it out the way and then carry on with life. And there they go, slowly disappearing off into the thickets. They gave us a good show though, didn't they? It's very cool to see them. All right, let's see what else is out here. Just have a quick scan about. So green Paul, I've never seen an Ellie give birth live from start to finish. I have arrived just as an elephant has dropped out of its mother, and the water, or the water from the birth is basically running down the road, and the elephant is kind of sloshing around in it, which I know sounds a bit weird, but it's the reality of what was going on at the time. So that's the closest I've ever come, and I've seen kind of very heavily pregnant females, and they starting to go into contractions, and but yeah, most of the elephant births are at night. That's why a lot of people don't see, well, a lot of people have never seen it. Is because most birthing of elephants takes place in the dark. All right, so from a plethora of animals to very little. Let's just quickly check down below here. I just want to see if the lapwing is on its nest. There's one lapwing. Now where is the other? I can't remember where the nest was this morning. I think it was straight in here. or where it was sitting, at least this morning, was in amongst those sticks there. But there's nothing sitting there this afternoon. So maybe they are not nesting anymore, or maybe the chicks have hatched. There's a little hornbill. But yeah, it's elephant birth is one of those things I would love to see, because it's just so interesting from a point of view of the animal's behavior around the birth. The whole herd gets involved, and when I arrived at that one that had just given birth, the whole herd was there around it. They were all touching it. The female actually laid down and pulled that little baby towards her teats to get a suckle of milk, and then they all helped it stand up. It was the most fascinating thing to watch. So I'd love to be able to see that. All right, we'll keep watching our little hornbill digging away furiously in the grass. In the meantime, I think Jared has just told me we're going to send you across to Pridelands. So not the Pridelands themselves, but Pridelands prize that you could win if you're part of the Explorers program.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an eco-training ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Very, very exciting prize to be won at Pridelands for our explorers. So I am doing some exploring of my own, still bumbling along trying to find some predators. It does seem as though there is not much out at this point. Everyone seems to be concentrated around the dams. So I'm actually going to go up and check one of our other dams in the area and just see if there are any tracks heading towards that area. It is still incredibly hot, as much as we are grateful for the cloud cover, which has definitely cooled it down a smidgen. It's still very, very hot. So what I'm thinking is the predators are actually really only going to start moving just before sunset, or just as the sun sets. And it seems like even things like impalas and kudus are sticking to the thicker shaded areas. And so at least, you know, I'm looking for tracks, and I can see fresh tracks on the road, you know, when they do pop up. But the only ones that I've had were actually in the southwestern corner. So I'm doing a little bit of a loop to see if they've come out anywhere else. I'm still absolutely adamant that there is a leopard in the drainage line close to Treehouse Dam, so I might actually go and sit there later and just see if there is any activity a little bit later on as it gets cooler, because I'm still 100% adamant there's a leopard there. But let's go and have a look at what Dev is doing in Cape Town.
Welcome back to Cape Town, everyone. We have a view of two predators over here. The Cape fur seal in the back is a pretty vicious, ferocious hunter, chasing fish and octopus and all sorts. And then in the front we've got this heart-libbed skull, which is a bit of a chip predator. If any of you have been to Hout Bay or Cork Bay and had fish and chips on the beach, you'll know that these white-lipped gulls are masters of stealing chips from unsuspecting tourists. They're really cool to get a bit of a more wholesome view, or like more dynamic shot of the space that we're in, just to see really how much variety in life there is here. We've got these birds, we've got the gulls, we've got another species of gull, a culp gull. We've got that colony of Cape fur seals in the background, which is actually a really beautiful backdrop to this whole scene and setting we're finding ourselves in here now. So culp gull just preening a little, heart-lipped gull just preening a bit, removing a feather that was no longer needed. And all in the setting of this really beautiful little nook. Waves just gently lapping the shore here. It's quite tropical actually. I do still have long pants on. But if you weren't aware of the temperature, I'm pretty sure you could be fooled into believing it was tropical. It's not quite as warm here as it is at Djuma today. I believe it's about 35 degrees. I'm not actually sure what the temperature in Cape Town is today. I would guess around 20. Quite temperate, quite manageable. Kind of a comfortable long pants and t-shirt kind of day, which is actually really nice. Not too warm, not too cold. There's one of the chip predators making his way across the beach now. Heather, the bird life is really incredible. Jason, I don't know if I can direct you quickly. Just up here on our left is another type of bird hopping around in this dead tree. There we go, Tessa, right on cue. Oh, and another one. These are red-winged starlings. We see lots of them in Cape Town. We see lots of them in Cape Town and now starling, ferocious, stealing chips and foodstuffs out of. I was at the waterfront once and had one take a chip out of my hand. It's starting to sound like I eat chips often. These birds just foraging on the intertidal zone here. As the tide changes and the seawater comes in and out twice a day, it brings with it and will often leave behind little scraps of food, little bits of fish, little bits of marine life that is dead and floating, gets washed up on the shoreline here. And these are these coastal birds that are really specialized in foraging in this intertidal zone.
Right, so I'm actually just driving along the cut line and I've just stopped to watch a herd of impalas. Just because they are such good indicators of predators, and there are a lot of them around. Especially recently in the fire breaks, there have been a lot more animals that have been here with the new growth. So I thought it was worth a try coming along the cut line just to check the fire breaks. Looks like the whole herd is actually moving up towards the road and possibly heading towards a dam later on. You can hear there aren't many birds calling. There's not much sound today. Seems like it's much more of an elephant day. And then the occasional impalas like this herd moving through. So it is now luckily getting to the time where it is starting to cool down fairly substantially. When you stopped in the sun, obviously it'll feel quite different, but if you keep moving like these impalas are, it'll be nice and cool with the breeze and the sun starting to set. Alright, so I don't see anything here that I am concerned about. They don't look alert. Whoop, Wendy is moving herself again. And so I'm actually going to carry on down towards the dam and just see if there is anything else around in this section. I know that there have been reports of lions in this section. So I'm definitely just wanting to have a look and see what else is moving through the cut line. Definitely, especially now that it started cooling off, I think there's a lot of promise for the rest of the afternoon. I'm very excited to see what starts to come out as it cools down towards sunset.
Well, we're just still scanning around, and there's a few dwarf mongoose that have just come out. I can hear them chittering away every now and then on the microphone. I'll try to find you some here. There we go. They're just scratching around in the old pan, looking for any little insects in amongst all the fallen over debris. They're not alone. There's some hornbills that are also bouncing about, but they're quite shy. There seems to be something flying around that's making them nervous because they keep running in and out from the logs and then feeding here and then panicking and running back again. And there you can see it's just digging. And you'll find these guys will kind of get to a point where they find something and then they dig with those little front legs, try and expose whatever insect that is buried under their little grubs and things like that are waiting for the rains before they start to hatch out. Not the best view of them just yet. I'm sure they'll come out. Here's some others here. The hornbills. We know the famous hornbill mongoose incident of 2018. I think it was 2018. With Taylor, the fainting mongoose that I think has been around the world 500 times by now. No, don't run away. Love these little guys. They've got so much attitude and character. I think they're heading up the slope now towards the mound that they generally spend their time at. You can see it's going to cross the road now. Let's come out a little bit. Cute little faces. They're like little mini bears, these guys. I always enjoy watching them. Their cute little ears and eyes. It's probably the longest I've seen one sit still in the afternoons. Normally they are busy little creatures. Let's come quite far across. You can just see it down below the camera. So it's where the impalas were a little bit earlier. So it's coming in to feed now. So Benson, you're asking about meerkats, mongooses and squirrels, if they're in the same family. So no, meerkats are actually in their own little group, and suricats basically is the family. Mongooses are in their little group. Squirrels also are rodents. They are not part of the mongoose family or the meerkat family. So the squirrel is basically part of the rat family, and off they go. You can hear them actually running across the road as they go. Trying to see if they're below us here. on. Sometimes they climb up this little log and do their thing. Where I think they're heading is up the slope and then towards a termite mound. I saw them the other day on this mound. I'm going to try to show you where I'm talking about. It's up on top there. I think this group is heading this way towards home before sunset, so they're just running across and up and into this little section here, and then they'll bed down for the night on that particular mound in itself. So we'll check in there a little bit later and see if they're all sitting on the edge of the mound. I don't know where they've gone. I'm kind of trying to look down here a little bit, but there doesn't seem to be any sign of them. I can hear them making their little squeaks and squawks that they make. Maybe they're just right below us. And there they are, directly below the camera. So that's what a bird of prey would see when it's looking for them. So something like a Wahlberg's eagle. They hunt these little dwarf mongoose quite regularly. Hello. Just saying hello. Alright, so there it goes underneath. I can't really go any further than that. So let's just come back out. Cute though. Alright, we shall see what else moves about and comes to the dam. In the meantime, let's send you across to Dev in Cape Town.
Cool little insight here. Me and Jason have been speaking the last few days about these granite rocks and how interesting it is, and down in this little ravine here, this little gully in the rocks, you can see the tide out here quite rapidly, and this is an incredible little habitat that happens down in here. It's super turbulent. You saw all that white water. It's all very aerated. There's lots of oxygen being kind of flushed into that water, and this is a completely unique environment that's created here. And in these type of environments are where we find little animals that are really specially adapted to living in these sorts of areas. We saw a crab a few days ago that was living and eating little bits of seaweed that were growing on the rocks. Down the bottom there, you'll also often see things like limpets, sea snails. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's an octopus living down in here. And those are all animals that are actually really well adapted to living in the intertidal zone. See the water rushing in now. Oh, so cool as the tide comes in. But this is really, you can just see how this water level's changing constantly. And as the tide fills up, it'll rise up and get higher and higher and higher. And then in 6 hours' time, start dropping again. A really unique little micro habitat here. And I mean, at the moment, it's probably changing almost a meter at night. Tide and the waves come in and out here and force a lot of water through a very narrow gap. I mean, it's not more than 30 centimeters. Just listen for a minute to the waves crashing here.
Here we are. We are on an expedition. This is the expeditionary force. Behind me, we have seen Tlalamba. We are very excited.
It's day one of the annual South African Guide of the Year competition, and our first foot into this competition this morning is all about tracks and signs.
We're going to call you in one at a time. Just look at it, the information will be there.
Our 5 guides have been tasked by the judges at figuring out who is what is who, and where they go in the bush.
It's either Franklin or guinea fowl, but because of the volume of other deposits in the area, we went with guinea fowl.
Detailing the surrounding that you need to look out for tracks. The details is very important.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river. It's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that. How beautiful. Look at that. One crossing, 2 to go.
We've just shifted a little bit further across here, and there's this beautiful rock pool-esque setting that we can see here, where the water is really moving in and out through that narrow channel. A strategically placed boulder there, and another strategically placed boulder a little bit further on, and this whole little bay section that we're looking at here, probably 30 or 40 meters across, same distance that way, would make this beautiful little rock pool. But it is a lot more protected in here than it is further out, and we'll see in the little section over here there's quite a lot of kelp that's growing off the bottom. If you look on top of the rocks, lots of seaweed growing, a whole variety of different ocean plants and shore plants that are growing here. And it's areas like this where we'll find a lot of quite specific fish life. So little things like klipvisse and galjoen love this whitewash. You can see how much white water is being churned up in here, and that's really where galjoen thrive. And I'm sure even some smaller, maybe bait fish like mullet or streepies will come into this little bay, and this is a perfect little protected space for them. And there'll be a lot more algal growth on these rocks because there's a lot less water and a lot less kind of wave action in here. It gets broken out a lot on the outside, but you can see right on the edge waves washing. This water is highly oxygenated. See the algae on the edge of this rock growing here. June, that's a very interesting question, and seawater and sea salt in particular, or the salt in the seawater, does have an impact on rocks. That is more specific actually to softer rocks, softer sandstones, limestones, and a whole variety of rocks that are what we would call less hard. These granite boulders, however, are a lot more resistant to weathering and erosion, so that would be a chemical erosion that happens with sea salt and salty water. And because this section of our coastline is made up mostly of this granite, we find that there is a lot less kind of erosion from it, from just the chemical aspect, and it's more the physical action. We have these massive swells that come into Cape Town, and particularly on the Atlantic side of the seaboard here, where we get these big cold fronts that move like a low pressure system They come all the way from just below South America, and they wash across that whole bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and we just get the tail end of the whips coming through here as our high pressures move further inland in winter. And the swell here on a big winter's day, you'll see 15, 20 meter high waves breaking, very messy, washing all over the shore out here. But you can imagine the effect that, and the impact that that has on this coastline and these rocks. And the fact that they're still here means the ones that are remaining anyway are extremely resistant, extremely hard, and best believe they've taken a severe beating in their time already. And just to be here today, they've really withstood some serious tests. Some beautiful light coming through now as well. The clouds actually on the horizon seem to have cleared, and we're getting some beautiful light rays coming through and just lighting this rocky intertidal area really beautifully. The tide is pushing now, so it's coming in. I'm not sure exactly what time high tide is, but judging from the beach, it's probably about a good 2 hours away or so. It's been really lovely showing you this little stretch of coastline in Cape Town today. This is my absolute favorite spot in the world. This Cape cold frigid water is my home, something I've grown up with and I've grown to love. And like I said, it was really nice getting to tell you guys a little bit more about what's going on here, come down here, explore it with you. It's been a real pleasure. Me and Jason have thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. We are going to head off for now, though. We're going to send you across to Tristan with some dwarf mongoose, but we'll see you shortly. And I hope you all have a really lovely end to your Monday afternoon.
Well, it's nice to see a different part of the country, and thanks to Dev for showing us that. Anyway, you're back with us, and will be for the remainder of the drive. Dam Cam has been pretty busy this afternoon. I feel like we've covered quite a lot, actually. We're still watching the little dwarf mongoose going about their business. There's a little fork-tailed drongo that's accompanying them, which is pretty par for the course. They generally are following the mongoose around, waiting for any little scraps that could potentially be left behind by the mongoose themselves. Sometimes naughty birds, they'll sometimes mimic the alarm calls to try and get little scraps for themselves. It doesn't always work, but they do it from time to time. The mongoose, though, still got a long way to cover. You can see they're generally going up the hill towards that mound that we were talking about, but they keep getting a fright. They go out and they got to cover basically from where this fallen over stump is to that fallen over stump in the background where the elephant is walking. So they got to go from one to the other, but they keep going, venturing into the open and getting a fright, running back to this fallen over logs, and then they venture out again and then back again. So it's just up and down all the time. I don't know if that's a different herd of ellies or if it's the same group that's just turning now again and heading back down our way. They're difficult to make out, but I'll try and kind of zoom in a little bit. If you didn't pick them up, they were somewhere in this general vicinity. They're behind the fallen over tree. They're coming through that gap along from right to left. Like I say, I think it's the same group. It should be. I mean, that's where the group headed off. It looks like they've changed direction a little bit. Sandy, I would imagine an elephant will mate at any time of the day. Any time a female will let a male mate, he'll probably take the opportunity. So there's not going to be any sort of time of the day. It's not like the birthing situation. And even within the birthing situation, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes they give birth during the day. I mean, there's been documented cases of that a few times. But mating any time of the day, I've seen ellies mate in the afternoons, the mornings, midday, evenings. Pretty much doesn't really matter to them as long as they get the job done. I don't know where the rest of the wildebeest went. This guy's just been hanging out by himself while the rest have walked away. They might all be up in this little thicket behind him to the right, behind the tree for us, where we can't see him. But he's just taking it very easy, having a very, very, very slow feed. And I'm surprised they didn't come down for water. I thought they were going to come a little bit earlier. There's no water where they're hanging around at the moment. The next water point in the direction that they were traveling would be Gallego, but they'd have to go all the way around the camp to get that right, which is a long way around. I can hear the mongoose squirrels are alarm calling. Why are you guys alarm calling? Let's have a quick look. See the dwarf mongoose there? They're still scuttling about. They don't look too disturbed. So maybe the squirrel is just upset because the mongoose are around. I don't know. They shouldn't be. Dwarf mongoose don't really threaten squirrels very much. But if it was something of major threat and it was alarm calling, you'd find these guys wouldn't be out in the open like that. That's very loud, little squirrel. I wonder if the squirrel's on the microphone because it sounds like it's below us here. I think it was here. Maybe it's gone off now. But nobody else seems to be too perturbed by the squirrels shouting, and so I think we can take it as though nothing really untoward is happening out here. Alright, little dwarf mongoose, are you guys going to go home? Or are we going to spend the night at this fallen over stump? Maybe that's what's happening today, is that the fallen over stump is going to be home for the night. I'd be surprised, but I suppose it's possible. There they go. You see them running up towards the top there. So I'm pretty sure they're going to cover this little open ground. There's some ellies in the background. So from our tiniest land-based carnivore to our largest land-based mammal. See, when they hear the squirrel alarm, they all come running to the stump to see what's happening. Alright, well, let's just stay with these guys and see if they make it safely home. Still on their log. They haven't decided to venture forth yet. There's one that's up at the main sort of cluster of fallen over trees in the background there, but they still got a little way to go to reach the stump on the top right. So we'll just have a little wait and see if they get there, but I'll let you guys just listen to the sounds of the evening for the next little bit. Dwarfies are still moving. You can hear some things climbing all over the equipment. which I'm pretty sure is a squirrel. And over the mic itself, which is not ideal, so sorry about that. Unruly squirrels is what we deal with sometimes out here. But our mongoose is gently getting up the hill. I'm sure they'll get there before the end of the day and before the sun sets.
Welcome back. It has cooled down quite nicely, and so I'm taking advantage of that, and I am driving as many of the drainage lines as I can. So I'm actually just on the right hand side of a drainage line at the moment. I'm still looking for any signs of a predator. It seems as though there are not as many animals further away from the watering holes today, but I'm hoping the drainage lines are going to be a wonderful draw for them. So what I'm looking for are birds that might be alarm calling, impalas or anything staring fixedly in a particular direction, or even impalas or kudus, things like that, alarm calling. But probably my favorite way to find a leopard is actually just spotting a little bit of the tail or the flicking ears in the long grass. So that's what I'm looking out for, any signs of white where there shouldn't be. And I'm just taking it really nice and slow, driving along the edges of the drainage lines. You can imagine on a hot day the crests or the tops of the hills are not very populous, and that's because it's very dry up at the top, but there's also not enough water for the trees to have foliage yet, so they don't have a canopy, which means there's no shade. So because it's only just started getting cooler now, and the breeze has become like a nice gentle steady breeze instead of a blowing wind and then nothing, it's definitely a really, really good time for animals to start coming out. So I am slowly making my way back towards the area with 3 dams in it, so Vuyatela Dam, Twin Dams and Treehouse Dam. And that's the area where the tracks have been most prevalent this whole day, since this morning. So I'm kind of just making sure that I'm covering ground around the area and then going back to check the water holes and the very popular drainage lines as well as the day gets cooler. So the only fresh tracks that I have seen every now and then have been hyenas. Gina, actually yes. Leopard cubs, lion cubs, hyena pups, all of them, hyena cubs, they will all remember their mom even once they've left. They'll know her scent very well. They'll be able to recognize her visually as well from a distance. And so they definitely do remember their mom. It's much more prevalent for female leopards to recognize their moms and not have any conflict. Leopards are quite unusual from the other animals in the sense that the mom will actually give up a piece of her territory for her female cubs, or she'll make space for her female cubs to stay in the area. Male cubs, however, will have to move. However, if they do actually meet up again at any point, they do recognize each other. There might be an interaction, but mostly what happens is they'll still keep their distance as much as they can. The only times that I've seen real interactions between adult cubs or adults that have left their moms has been when one of them is actually stealing a carcass from the other. So it really just depends situation to situation, but they will definitely recognize their moms. Elephants do it as well. Most likely the antelopes do as well. Each individual animal has a very specific scent. And it actually might not seem like it, but humans actually also rely on scent a lot more than we realize. There are scents that we are attracted to, there are scents that we recognize and associate with specific people, and even specific pheromones that our bodies react to that another person emits. Very interesting. So, for example, people or specific people will have specific tastes and interests, and so if somebody smells a specific way and that is what you're attracted to, that is what you will pick up in every other person. If they smell similar, you will be attracted to them as well. It's a very interesting concept where we actually have a little bit of the animal side still showing there, and we're quite attracted to smells even though we might not realize it. There's actually a very interesting study that shows that some people still have the more animalistic genes, in the sense that, not like a wild side, but in the sense that you might be more attracted to, for example, somebody that has muscles as opposed to somebody that is maybe a little bit more on the chubby side, or somebody with a beard as opposed to no beard, those kinds of things. And it's actually studies that have shown that men that have beards, for example, seem to be more manly to a specific type of person, whether it's man or woman that finds them attractive. And the reason that they find them more attractive is because it links a little bit more back to the primal side or the animal side, where they tend to be stronger in the wild. So it's a very interesting concept. I'm very interested in those kinds of dynamics. So there is a herd of elephants here that seems to be feeding along slowly just next to the drainage line. Move a little bit forward. We can get a view of this calf. So there are a few that are crossing the road. It seems like they have been to the dam at some point. As the moms are still a little bit wet, it looks like the youngsters haven't had as much of a mud bath though. You can see there, this one is completely dry. So this is very likely the same herd of elephants that was scattered along the drainage line earlier, very close to twin dams. It's quite a large herd. I think it's about 20 to 25 elephants, somewhere there. And I think now that it's cooler, they're really capitalizing on the breeze, but also on the fact that they don't have to hide while they're feeding. So this youngster's specifically looking for the fresh growth on the top of that little tree. It's taking off all of the new green leaves that the plant has spent so much energy growing. And this is very, very typical because those are the more succulent leaves. They are softer, they're easier to digest, and they're slightly higher in nutrients too, because of all of the nutrients that are being pumped there to grow them quickly. Decided it's a little bit camera shy. So I can see some of the other elephants are scattered around. I wouldn't be surprised if the elephant at the back is this one's mum. Jose, so prickly branches can be a problem if, especially for a young elephant, they've got quite soft gums and palates and tongues. But in terms of the trunk itself, no. The trunk is actually quite tough. An elephant's skin is very, very thick, and so all of those white thorns that you can see shouldn't be a problem. They also learn from a very young age how to avoid the thorns when they are pulling off the branches. I have seen many elephants take a branch like that covered in thorns and put it straight into their mouth and chew. But that is usually older elephants. So elephants that are maybe 8 to 10 years and older, they will have a more hardened mouth. They're much more used to all of the different foods that they're eating, because you can imagine they're putting bark and whole branches in their mouths and chewing them up. So the mouth hardens over time, and so it doesn't become as much of a problem for them later on in life. But it is interesting to see them, not really too worried about thorns, because not many other animals can say that they have that skill, other than giraffes. Giraffes also don't mind thorns. You can see it is still warm enough that it's kind of still important to flap the ears and get the wind over those veins in the back of the ears. all of those networks of arteries and veins and blood vessels so close to the skin. I'm going to try and move a little bit forward because it seems like the elephants are congregating just a little bit further on. There's quite a few fork-tailed drongos around as well, which is awesome. I love watching their interactions with the elephants and all of their different calls too. Fork-tailed drongos are incredibly intelligent. We can get that one at the back from here. And the tiny little calf that's running around too. Londeka, actually yes. When elephants give birth, it's mostly at night. It's not usually done during the day, although obviously there have been some exceptions. There's always an exception to the rule. But they will look for a more covered area if they're in a smaller herd, and that's because it's a little bit safer in a covered area. That being said, in very big herds, the other females will actually protect the female and her baby, the female that's giving birth. So a lot of the footage that you see in big herds is actually in open areas, and that's because the female can see further, so she's aware of the predators that are around her. But if she feels she's in a smaller herd or she's had to move off, she might give birth in the thickets so that she has a little bit of privacy and is a little bit hidden, so predators can't find her as easily. So it will depend situation to situation. There are exceptions to the rule. I would love to see an elephant giving birth. I've never been that lucky. I've seen a buffalo give birth. I've seen a zebra give birth. Never seen an elephant give birth. I've seen a very fresh newborn that was probably about half an hour old. I think we arrived just after she had actually started standing up. And it was incredible to see how pink the baby was. Very, very pink on the edges of the ears. And the face, very hairy as well, lots of little fuzzy hairs all over the face. And she was very well hidden in a thicket, that elephant, and that was because she was alone. She had separated from the herd. She went right next to a drainage line, very similar to where we are now, except that there were a few more bush willows, so it wasn't quite as sparse. And she actually gave birth in the summer, so it was quite a lot more thickets around as opposed to the dry grass and empty trees. That little one is definitely still learning how to use its trunk properly. Trying its best to wrap its trunk around a piece of grass, but it seems to have to do it about 100 times to get a grip. Definitely not as good as Mom yet. Very interesting to note as well is that the adult elephants will focus a lot more on, like you could see the mom there, she was actually focusing more on eating dry branches, where the calf was eating more greenery that had just sprung. That is very interesting to note the difference, and that comes in from having a bigger body as an adult and having to struggle a little bit more to find water. Where the little ones might still have mom's milk, they have a smaller surface area to volume ratio, and so they don't need to cool down as much as the adults do. Those two calves are actually still both very young. They seem to be having a little bit of a play fight there, slightly hidden. But this is a very important tool for that younger calf for learning how to interact with other elephants, but also testing its own strengths. And also in terms of figuring out how to actually have a fight with another elephant, whether it's for survival, whether it's for playing. It did a little jump there, that was so cute. it's very, very important to learn where to push with your face as an elephant. Elephants have very special adaptations in their skulls. It's hiding so wonderfully. I'm going to reverse 2 meters for you, Morgan, so we can get that in. Here we go. So elephants have very special adaptations in the skull, and that's because the head is so big and the tusks are so big that it would be almost impossible for an elephant to hold its head up if it weighed or if it was structured the same way as a normal bone in the body or in the human skull. And so what they actually have is almost like a honeycomb structure in the skull. And so it's very important for a young elephant to learn which parts of the face it can push with and apply pressure with. Because the bone structure, although it is strong, is honeycomb-like. So if there's a big impact, it could actually damage the skull of an elephant. You can see there's a Burchell starling following them around as well. We're actually just getting to the golden light now. It's a really beautiful time to be watching them. And I think in the last 10 minutes alone it's dropped about 5 degrees Celsius at least. The little calf seems to be coming out again. I know there is a little bit of repositioning happening, but it's definitely worth it when you're watching young elephants. Almost straight into the sun where they are standing, but a much clearer view of them trying to learn to use the trunk. So there's a lot of bush willows in this area. That's that green leafy tree that you can see there, and that is currently forming a very staple part of elephants' diets because it's one of the first trees that has started getting fresh green leaves and started quite a bit before the marulas and other plants that are not evergreen. And so there you can see the fresh green foliage, absolutely beautiful. And that is currently a massive part of an elephant's diet. You can imagine with everything else looking so brown, that greenery is very attractive. Definitely giving us a challenge in terms of trying to find a clear view. I'm going to spend a little bit more time with them just to see how that calf gets on as it's learning to use its trunk.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an eco-training ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
I think sometimes you need just to listen. So it's a kind of taking out all that other spirit and bring back wilderness and healthy. Bushwalk and trek and sign. I'm sure I'm good at that. I spend most of my time on the ground since I was a young boy, so I think I'm good with that. Actually, I'm not much nervous of any category. Just take it as it is. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on what the judges are looking at. So chances are 50-50 on my side. I'm not... Obviously, when you go for a competition, you say you win.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... Oh. That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth.
Just watching the wildebeest slowly make their way up the hill and towards quarantine for the night. They're done feeding on this little patch, and it's now time to migrate upwards and into the clearings and away from any potential drama that could come down to the dam. It's that time of the day that those things will start to get active. Now you'll also notice in the background of the wildebeest, if you look on the mound, our dwarf mongoose have safely made it home. You'll just see them moving about on their little mound there, so they safely crossed through the wildebeest and onto the mound where they're now going to go to bed. They made it before the sunset, so they've done a fine job getting there. It's always a little task to get back home, especially over big clearings, through big animals. A little bit of grooming that's taking place, and then I think it's bedtime for all of them. Right, I haven't actually been scanning around too much. I was just watching the wildebeest. Sometimes I like to check them. Amanda, please, indeed you can. So you can tell the gender of wildebeest by looking at the way the horns are structured. So close together with a brown fawn head is typically, well, that is females, and the males have the dark forehead and the horns slightly apart and much bigger and bulkier on the top of the head, much like a buffalo. Not quite the same size in terms of the boss, but they do get a thickening on top like the buffalo do as well in the male's horns. It's a pity that they've moved off, because it would have been nice to be able to show you that. But alas, they are gone. Just want to quickly scan along. There's a little heron over there. Seems like the wind for the most part has died right down. It's not nearly as bad as it was. I just got a message now from Marcel, who's busy trying to test Rusty out. We're trying to fix and get that wall working, so he's been out this afternoon trying to do sort of signal tests and things like that. And he just came across that leopard that we tracked at Buffelshoek Dam with the kill yesterday. But he says he's lost it already, so I don't know which leopard it is, but he did get a photograph, so that's really cool to know. I'll be intrigued to see which leopard it is, and hopefully it will still be there for maybe test to find, or in the morning for us to go and scratch around if Rusty's good to go. Will hopefully be the case. You can see our heron is just pruning. I think it's that time of the day where we're going to see a lot of the animals just starting to bed down, so much like those dwarf mongoose were grooming and getting ready for sleep. And these guys also just clean themselves up and basically get themselves ready for an evening of rest. A lot of the birds don't like to move around at night, although the herons, funny enough, I've seen them hunting in the depth of night. They seem like they don't worry too much. I suspect that here in Africa they're a little bit worried of the crocodiles, so you don't see them as much in these kind of big dams. But if it's a nice shallow little pan and they don't know there's any crocs there, then I've actually seen them, like I say, hunting at night. And of course also out here we get the night herons, which are all very active, but they have a very different eye structure, big eyes to be able to see in the dark, and be able to do their thing. You can see how this heron is just using its beak to get in right under all those feathers, clean everything out. Time from Josh. Best encounter with a small bird of prey. Sure, now you're putting me on the spot. I've got to think back about all the little things that I've seen. I don't know if it's the best encounter, but probably one of my fondest memories of watching birds of little small birds of prey is when I used to spend time with my grandparents they at one point lived in a place called Sabi, which is not far from here up on the escarpment, and they lived on quite a sort of open, well, not open, but it was a kind of a mountainous area, but there was not a lot of density of people, so it was quite low density and big property, and we used to get the sparrowhawk hunting doves there. And I remember the one day, not so much with dove hunting, but there was an explosion of termites, and all these winged allets were coming out and everywhere, and there was just birds going crazy, but hundreds of birds that were hawking all of these termites, and that then led to the sparrowhawks coming in and hunting these birds, and it was just the most insane thing to watch these clouds of termites and these birds coming in to feed off it, and various types of species, and then out of nowhere the swooping of these little sparrowhawks grabbing and then flying off and landing was very, very, very cool. So I think that's probably one of my best memories of small birds of prey. I've seen pretty cool things with them kind of fighting. I've seen a few little hunts as well. But yeah, I think that just is one of the standout ones for me. There's probably others. I just can't remember them right now. So yeah. I actually have a funny story with a bird of prey too, when I was little. So my brother and I, he's older than I am by 5 years. We went fishing, and because he was older, he could, they often just let me kind of tag along with him. I can't remember how old I was at the time, but I must have been about maybe 11, somewhere there. So I wasn't tiny, but we used to go fishing in this escarpment, up in the mountains there, close to Sabi, and there was this dam, and it was in amongst this pine forest. So the whole dam was kind of an opening in the pine forest, and so we were sitting there, and we saw and back then we were big into our birding, even at that age, and my brother and I spotted a long-crested eagle, and so we went and towards the forest to try and see if we could get a better view of it, and we were also trying to go and find a different little spot to go and fish in, and so we were adventuring. And anyway, we find this long-crested eagle, and it flies off from the forest floor, and we go there to go and check what it had been doing, and we found the evidence of it having eaten, and there was fur there. So I was like, oh, this is cool, and I picked up the fur. And I was like, 10, 11 years old, you curious, and I was saying to my brother, I reckon we could use this to tie it into a fly somehow, just, why not? Just try different materials, see if it works. And as I kind of picked up the fur, the wind blew slightly and turned it over, and it was the 2 ears of the mouse with a little fur down the thing, and I got a fright when I saw that as a little child, and I was traumatized. My brother thought it was hilarious that I'd picked up the ears and got a fright and kind of threw it in the air and ran away type thing. So it was very funny. It still stands out to this day. I can remember exactly where it was, and remember the laughter afterwards. Cool memory. So it's not all been in the bush, and that's the nice thing with birds, is that a lot of the epic bird sightings that I've had have actually not even been in the bush areas. But I think most epic bird sighting I've had in the bush itself, from a behavioral aspect, was watching a emerald spotted wood dove lay an egg in a lion sighting. That was quite something. I was bored thoroughly by lions sleeping, and the guests were taking photos, and I was drifting and kind of spotted this nest and saw this dove, and it was not even 3 minutes of watching this dove. It wiggled its bum, stood up slightly, and then wiggled again, and out popped an egg. It was the most random and weirdest thing I've seen, but pretty special. It's not every day you get to see a dove lay an egg in front of you while sitting with a whole bunch of lions. Anyway, the stork is well, your stories are nothing. I can stand on one leg and balance and clean myself at the same time. Very common behavior from herons and storks. Did I say stork? I meant heron. If I did say stork, I meant heron. But storks and herons do this quite regularly. They stand on one foot like this. All right, well, we'll keep watching our heron and see what else we can find while he sits there and grooms himself. Still watching our heron. Let's just come out and see. You would have seen a few dwarf mongoose also moving around. Let's check and see what else is here. Doesn't seem like anything too much that is going on. Kind of hoping we'd all these damn cam shifts that at some point Shasha was going to make an appearance. I haven't had really any updates on him of late. I know a lot of you have been asking for updates on Shasha, Tingana, Tandi. So I'll give you the updates on the cats that I know about. Tingana, nothing. So the last known proper sighting photographed was Mala Mala, going on over 3 weeks now. Somebody said that they saw him going towards the Kruger after the Mala Mala thing. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. There's no photographs, there's no timestamps on that stuff, so I can't be sure. Then I was just trying to remember. Oh yeah, Tandi was seen not yesterday evening, the evening before, with Marips, so she's around. And who else were we talking about? I think that's the two main ones that people have been asking about. There's been a number of other leopards around, which I'll get into just now. Some interesting stuff that's been taking place over the course of the last few days. No camera. That's not what I wanted. Sorry, guys. I pressed the wrong button. I actually wanted to zoom in there. But I saw something down the drainage line. What is that? It's just a stump by the looks of things. Is it just a stump? There's something moving there. Is it a baboon? Looks like a baboon. I do think it's a baboon. We'll watch that closely just to see exactly what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's a baboon that's just sitting in the grass there, taking it very easy. Yes, 100% a baboon. I'm sure the rest of them will come through now. Hopefully they'll give us a little bit of entertainment.
So we have found my Reeps, and I'm so excited to see him on the move, headed towards the dam at Chitwa. Look at that tail moving. He's definitely on high alert. He is actually moving towards a drainage line slowly, but there are a few termite mounds in the way. So I'm hoping he decides to have a little pause on a fallen log or on the termite mound. You can hear some impala's alarm calling in the distance. I think he had been watching the impala and then they picked up on him, so he's moved. Look at that tail going. Wow, he is getting so big. I don't know if he's coming back towards the road. Yeah, he is actually turning back towards the road. He's done a little bit of an adventure up and down. He's actually following the Egyptian geese. He's running after them. They're in quite a bumpy area, it seems. Alright, so you can see he is hungry. Look at that pose. He's standing ready to run. He actually heard the Egyptian geese. He saw them flying over from a distance, and now he looks like he wants to follow them because they've gone and landed close to a drainage line. Alright, so I'm going to get a little closer just as he's moving. It looks as though he is definitely going towards that drainage line. Right, let's see what he does from here. Alright, so he has actually sat down. Indies, I agree, absolutely incredible to see my ribs. A little last-minute leopard this evening before it gets dark is never a bad thing. You can see the golden light is just still catching his face a little bit. Oh, Wendy is moving herself again. So he's definitely calculating at the moment where those Egyptian geese went. He's waiting to see if he can hear them again. Because at the moment, with the impala having spotted him, the Egyptian geese are an easier target. That being said, he is going to have to move quite a distance just to get there. Those fluffy ears. Absolutely stunning. So you can see he is on high alert. He keeps moving his ears and his head. He's re-evaluating all the time, listening for any sounds. It could be twigs breaking, it could be birds' alarm calling. Just anything that would indicate that there might be some food around. The last time we know that he ate was the other day when he had killed a baby nyala on torchwood. And he probably didn't get overly full from that because the hyenas did manage to steal some of it. I'm very happy to see him here and looking as though he wants to hunt tonight. So I'm very impressed with this young male. The size of his neck and the size of his paws. I think he is going to get quite a lot bigger. I know his mum is quite small, but he might have gotten some genes from his dad, and I think he is going to be quite big. He's definitely one of the most beautiful leopards I've seen. So he's even picking up small changes in wind direction at the moment, using those whiskers and the hairs in his ears as well. They serve a purpose for the wind too. And he's actually at the moment, he's chosen a pretty good vantage point. He's sitting high up on almost a gabion actually, or a mitre drain, sorry, that's the right word. Sitting up on a mitre drain in the sand, nice and soft, nice and cool. But there's actually a drainage line in front of us, and so he's got a vantage point looking down and across the drainage line for any potential food. There is a vehicle here with us. And you can hear they're really enjoying taking some photographs of him. He is absolutely beautiful, especially the way he's lying right now. Definitely showing off a little bit of his figure there. It is nice to know that Maribs has found himself somewhere that he can be most of the time, and that's, now in the east here, moving between Torchwood and Chitwa and the eastern side of Djuma. It's amazing that he feels safe here because he has been moving around here for a while. And to see him here so regularly is really a good sign that he's found a spot where he can stay safe and find himself some food. He has been seen with Tundi, his mom, a few times in the last kind of 2 weeks. So although he is independent from her, he is still in the same territory, and that's very similar to the question earlier whether he'll recognize his mom. He definitely does. They still have some interactions, but he is big enough now that he would steal carcasses from her and she would try and steal carcasses from him. But they wouldn't necessarily attack each other because they do still know each other. He's definitely heard something up on the opposite crest that he's intrigued by. You can see those ears moving. He's gathering information while he's staring. This guy Doogie, yes, he is in the classic Sphinx mode pose right there, looking absolutely royal as ever. I think he knows how special he is. He certainly shows it. You can see how big his paws are though. Especially from the front like that. He's got quite substantial paws for his body size. Oh, time for a nap. So he's not actually going to be fully asleep at the moment. He is still listening. Watch his ears while he's lying there. They're still going to be moving. He's got a massive advantage because the wind is still blowing. And so he's using that wind to pick up on smells and sounds. And he can use that to hunt anywhere on either of the two crests. There's one behind him, one in front of him, and a drainage line in the middle. And so he's got a great space to hunt, especially now that he is so close to the dam, because animals are going to have to come down to drink. Or they might even be coming back up from drinking. How beautiful is it to be able to see him relaxing. And I'm so happy that I get to end off my day with my reeps. Absolutely incredible.
As WildEarth has shown, a guide is critical to your enjoyment when on safari. Safari Guide of the Year is an annual event which creates awareness for these men and women who dedicate their lives to tourism and wildlife. WildEarth fully supports this initiative that gives more credit to a profession that drives our economy and flies South African flags higher than most. In the lead up to our live award ceremony, where the Safari Guide of the Year 2021 will be crowned, we are inviting all our viewers to join us for a special fireside chat. Open to everyone, this unique event invites some of the top guides in the country to Djuma on the 26th of September, straight after the Sunset Safari.
I turned to Shaun and I saw that she had this panicked look on her face. Either she was afraid that something had happened or she was afraid that she was going to miss out on something. But instead of her missing out on those lions, we drove up next to them and I switched off the car so that she could hear what was going on. Now, these lions had killed a kudu, and she could hear these two cubs, both 8 months old at the time, busy pushing and shoving each other out the way to get to the best parts of the meat. And the mom was lying just to the side in the shade. Now, I'd known that before losing her sight, Shaun probably knew what a lion looked like. But I really wanted her to know what this lion looked like. So for the first time in my guiding career, I started to describe to someone what a lion looked like. And I found that, I started to notice things in that lion that I'd never seen before.
Oh, it's going to be in trouble now. Oh, this is unbelievable stuff. Here comes a hippo in too. Go, Impala. There's a hippo coming in. I can't believe what we're seeing here. This is what we normally see in East Africa. It's all over. Hippo leaping at the crocodile now. Everything's gone underwater.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Right, so Marip seems like he is trying his best to catch something at the moment up a tree. It's a very, very small one, so he's being the classical clown that he can be. Oof. I'm gonna see if I can fit through this gap. So I'm just trying to get a little bit closer to him. He looks as though maybe it's a squirrel, something small. There we go. Sure. Yeah, it's a squirrel. Oh, and down the tree again. Alright, so he's looking a little bit frustrated at the moment. He's lost a squirrel in the long grass. And he's still looking up to see where it may have gone. That was very entertaining, actually. It happened so quickly. He actually got up and jetted all the way across the road, across the boundary, jumped up after the squirrel, and the squirrel got away. He's still wondering where it went. Look at him. Look at that tail as well. So expressive. I think he's going to do a very thorough search here, trying to figure out where it went. That squirrel is long gone. I can tell you that right now. It would have bolted as fast as it could. But any little sounds, you can see he is on such high alert. Soul food, I hope he gets some dinner too. He looks like he needs it. He is very, very interested in anything that's moving at this point. Doesn't look like he has an empty belly, but definitely not full either, so it's no wonder he's hunting on such a beautiful evening. Very easily distracted tonight. So you can see he is still a young leopard. He is still a bit inexperienced. He gets distracted very easily and spends so much energy running so far across the road to jump up a tree after a squirrel, where he could save that energy and instead, you know, if you conserve all that energy and you find something worthwhile, you can use it. A squirrel wouldn't be a very big meal for him, so he definitely wouldn't have a lot of energy coming from that. Sorry, Wendy is moving herself a bit again. He's definitely convinced there's still something in there. So he's sniffing around for it. There would be skinks in there, there would be lizards in there, maybe snakes. A typical young leopard having enough energy to do all of these strange things. So he's back to thinking, back to the drawing board, looking for another spot to look for some food. Notice how he's looking up all the time. He's checking in all the small branches to see if the squirrel climbed up another tree. Because the squirrel moved so fast, I don't think he could properly track its movement as he was trying to get it and coming down. Big yawn. Patterson, you're right, Marips never disappoints. I'm sure he'll flush something out eventually, moving along through this drainage line, bit by bit. Right, so he looks like he's actually walking down along the drainage line and towards the dam. So I'm going to try and keep up with him. I'm actually going to see if I can find a nice clear path through the bush here and get you another view.
Penguins certainly look quite cute. We've actually been doing a lot of birding at the dam. I had a nice lilac brezirola, but it just obviously flew off as we were trying to look at it, which is par for the course. Sometimes I'm just checking to see if our lapwings are sleeping here again, if it is actually a nest or if it's just that they were sleeping there today. No, there's no lapwing there, so it wasn't nesting. Otherwise it would still be there. But otherwise quite quiet, not really much happening. I haven't even heard any alarm calls or anything like that. It just, you know, the dam goes pretty quiet at this time of the day. This is time for cats to start coming out. So, you know, I don't expect much to come down. Every now and then you might get some ellies at this time of the day, but generally the peak period for a dam would be the sort of hour before sunset. Unless there's cats around. If there are cats around, then they come in. Now you can see some guinea fowl moving down the drainage line. Excuse me. The baboons went all into camp, so didn't really get much view of them. Saddleboard stork went behind the bank here, as did 2 herons. So it's been a bit tricky to kind of find anything else the last little bit. I think there's a heron in the tree there. That is indeed. Sorry guys, I know it's not easy to... Oh, come on. Trying to get the focus right, because now that time of the day where the camera doesn't want to focus very well. Rowena, any day now. I think if we get a little bit of rain, we're going to see them arriving. So apparently there's forecast for decent rain coming. I expect just after that. They normally arrive just after the first little rains. I think this bird's going to take off. There we go. Let's see when they defecate. It's always the case. As soon as they defecate, they're gone. So yeah, I expect after the first decent rain, they'll come in pretty quickly. So yeah. All right. Sounds like Tessa's caught up with Marips, and so I'll send you across to her.
Right, so it looks as though Marips is on a little bit of a scent marking mission at the moment. He's paying very close attention to this log. And he sniffed it and he did a bit of a phlegm and grimace. So I think he's analysing where another leopard may have scent marked. Maybe yesterday or the day before. We have switched over into infrared. So you'll see the light is a little bit different. But he still looks absolutely stunning. I wonder what he's smelling. I think a leopard definitely. Look at that phlegm and grimace. I love it. I think it definitely urinated there. He's trying to gather information. Was it male or female? How old? What was happening in that moment? And he's using his organ of Jacobson, which is situated on top of his palate. So that grimace, he's trying to get as much air from smelling through that organ as possible to pick up the pheromones and chemicals. He is still paying close attention. If you can imagine, for a young male leopard, you know, he is kind of settled here. But this is still going to be in the territory of a bigger male. Tela, any leopards, so like Marips and Tundi, will find each other using scent more than anything. So he'll be able to smell where she has been and he'll be able to follow that scent, and vice versa, she'll be able to follow his scent. They might also use calls and things like that to know where another leopard is. I might have to move a little bit. Oh, there we go, he's moving too. Alright, let's see if we can keep up. He looks as though he's going straight down towards the dam. Just ambling along down the road. I actually don't smell any popcorn there, so I don't know how recent the scent marking was on that log. Right, let's... Oh, he's actually going down towards the drainage line. You can hear a bird alarm calling in the background already, and straight away he's lifted his tail. And that's typical leopard response. Anytime a leopard is spotted and there's alarm calling going on, he's saying, I know, I'm here, I'm showing you I'm here, and I'm just moving through, instead of, you know, being a threat and hiding. He's basically saying you can stop being alarmed. Let's see if we can get that. So he's currently perched on a rock, looking down towards the riverbed. You can see how looped his tail is. And the reason that the tip of his tail is still moving is because of that alarm calling. Gigi, I think the dominant male around this area is probably a little bit further away. Sorry, the comms didn't come through so clearly, but I think you're asking who the dominant male is in this territory. Just reposition. So, in the east, Morgan, who would it be? Do you know? So I'm not actually sure who it would be in this area. I know a lot of the males have been moving quite far. I know Tavangumi has been moving around a lot as well, but I'm not even sure that it would be Tavangumi. But I can definitely find out for you, Gigi, and let you know. Tristan will definitely know. My 10 days of experience here are insufficient. Alright. So it looks as though he's coming down to the riverbed, and as though he might climb the termite mound or one of the trees around here, looking for a better view. And definitely still looking for food. The way that he's moving shows that he's looking for something. Oh, wow. So you'll probably find he's going to walk the whole length of this dry riverbed tonight looking for food, because this is a good area for animals to come down to keep cool, but also an area to find fresh food. That was quite a weird lick that he gave himself there. Got something stuck behind his shoulder blade. He is looking up on the termite mound. Very easily distracted, as only Maroops could be. Wonder where he is going. Let's have a look. So he looks as though he's doing a bit of a zigzag up and down the riverbed and the banks, looking for food. I'm hoping that he's going to pop up on this termite mound, although you never know. Oh, yep, there he is. He's on the termite mound, but he's just showing us his bum right now. I think he's looking in all the holes to see if there's any food in there. Okay, so the dominant male in this area is actually Mulawati, or quarantine if you go further east, but quarantine has not been seen in a while. Thank you, FC. But I'm going to try and find him again on the other side of the termite mound, and hopefully we can get another view.
Well, while Tessa tries to get another view of Maroops, we're just scanning about, trying to see what there is. Some nice nocturnal sounds at the moment. The last birds that are calling, you'll see we're in infrared at the moment just because it's getting dark. So nice just to listen to some of the birds. I heard a pale-spotted owlet and birch or starling, so I'll just let you guys listen to those too. It's still quite bright to the west. The sun is beginning to set. Doesn't seem to be much else. Let's just check around the base of the camera just in case. Nothing really lurking there. Doesn't seem like anything towards the water. Thought maybe we'd have a scrub hare out by now. Maybe it's still a little light for them. Nice to hear all the sounds of the birds and the crickets starting to come in. It's just change over between daylight and night. That is starting to take effect now, so you're starting to hear changes in the bird calls, which is cool. Alright, well, let's see what else will come down this evening.
In typical Maroops fashion, he has come right up onto the top of the termite mound, and he is now lying down surveying the drainage line from his vantage point. His ears are still moving so quickly, so he's definitely still looking for food, but I think he's decided the light has dropped enough that he is very well camouflaged on top of that termite mound. We are very lucky we're seeing it in infrared, so we can see him a lot better than animals can right now. With the naked eye, I can only see him because of the silhouette of his ear. He's He's actually still, as he's looking around, even checking up the trees directly around him, even though he has checked them already. Absolutely beautiful evening. You can hear a lot of the birds are waking up now for the night. A lot of nocturnal birds. And other than that, all is peaceful. So he'll be listening for little things like impalas calling each other, twigs breaking, so that it kind of shows movement of animals. He's seen something up in the tree. Probably a bird. You can see how he's kind of trying to judge the depth. His depth perception might be a bit off. Michelle, no. Leopards won't form coalitions. I've certainly never heard of one. They are very, very much solitary cats compared to every other predator that we know of. Leopards are the most solitary, so you won't have a coalition of males. The males are fiercely competitive and will kill each other if need be over territories. Leopards are actually famous for fatally wounding animals as opposed to actually killing animals in a fight. They hurt just enough that they know the animal can't fight back and will probably die in the next few days, and then they make their escape. But no, coalitions are not something that leopards would form. You can see how well camouflaged he is, especially from a distance on top of that termite mound. He's chosen an absolutely beautiful spot with the sun setting in the background and the light fading. There he comes. He definitely saw something in the tree there. Right, he has gotten the other way. So let me see if I can find him for you again. Yep, still just on a mission. There's a hole here. I don't want to drive into a hole. And it looks as though he is coming back down towards the riverbed again. So he's definitely doing a bit of a scouting session right now, moving between the riverbed and slightly higher up in the tree line. Right, he is moving. Let me try and keep up. All right. We are having a few issues with the infrared light, unfortunately. I'm just going to see where he goes. I'll give an update to some of the other guides for the morning. It looks as though he's actually just going to carry on through the riverbed and see what else he can find. I also don't want to ruin his chances tonight of a hunt or the possibility of success, because you can imagine for a leopard that's busy looking for food, if there's a vehicle constantly following behind or any noise behind it, anything like that, it can be quite challenging because other animals are actually going to pick up on the movement. They might look over and catch a glimpse of a leopard. So we really don't want to ruin his chances. He's definitely still hunting. He's actually moving off into the drainage line now. It'll be very interesting to see tomorrow morning if he gets anything. Unfortunately, I think.
Free diving is the purest way to experience the great African sea forest. Silently gliding through the long kelp farms allows you to reconnect with nature and explore this enchanted world. Sea Forest is a brand new daily experience coming soon on the WildEarth channel. You will explore an underwater forest live from Cape Town, while a team of naturalists explain what we are seeing.
Like trees in a forest, these kelp provide food and shelter for many, many species.
Magical encounters with shy marine life, crustaceans, sharks, seals, and so much more will all bring a window of calm into an otherwise chaotic world.
We're here at the Advanced Rifle Handling Challenge, which is actually lots of challenges in one to gauge the contestants' skills at different distances and different speeds. This is probably the challenge that the contestants are the most nervous about. So let's get them locked and loaded. Competitors are now doing the Hales halt, where they have to run back and forth to a target, turn, take aim, and shoot. And this simulates a chase in a real environment and gets the heart pumping and the blood pressure up. James gave us a demonstration, and the skill involved in this exercise is remarkable.
Goodness, look at its wobbly legs. Oh, I don't believe it. I can't believe we've actually seen it. Oh my goodness. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Oh no. Oh, it's okay, little one. Okay.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Scrub hares are rooting around. It's that time of the night where they've started to emerge and just having a good feed. They're not really doing too much. Scrub hares aren't animals that will do a lot. And they typically are just going to take it pretty easy and feed and try and stay alive, basically. Which is a fair enough thing to do. Staying alive, I would imagine, is the object of the game for a lot of the Nocturnals. There's not a lot of other things around. What's that? I see lots of little eyes in there. You see that? There are little baby scrub hares in there. What are those eyes? Another little scrub hare coming out. Let's see what those are, but there's definitely eye shine. Background, maybe insects, could be spiders. Their eyes sometimes pick up. But these two have been interacting quite a bit. You can see the one is... now you guys are going to run off. Delightful. But the one is quite shy of the other one. It kind of drops its ears and is a little bit circumspect. You know what those eyes could be behind those scrub hares could have been scorpions. These fallen over stumps like this is a good place for scorpions. Often see them in the loose bark. Nice habitat for them not to go unnoticed and to not actually get themselves eaten by a number of different things. So you often see them kind of hiding out. That's maybe what we're picking up. You can see that little shiny thing on the far right of the frame. That's what I'm talking about. It could also be, I suppose, a spider. They also hang around too. Scrub is having a fine time. Finding food, this particular scrub here. Ooh, little bugs. So, calves are generally herbivorous animals that are... Here in this part of the world, we refer to everything kind of bigger than a Ngala, that is an antelope, all of those young ones will be calves, and all of the animals that eat grass or leaves, generally calves, for those animals. Cubs are mostly of foxes and cats, big cats particularly, as well as the smaller cats. We refer to them as kittens. So, if we're looking at serval, for example, serval would be kittens, cheetah, lion, leopard, cubs. What was the other one in that, Jarrett? There was lambs. So lambs is everything smaller than a Ngala in this area. So impalas, steenbuck, duiker, and pups are all of your dogs and jackals, basically. Hyenas will be cubs as well, because they reckon there's a slightly closer correlation to cats than there are dogs, so they refer to as cubs. But yeah, dogs are pups, and then weirdly pangolins too. Their offspring is also called a pup. So yeah, they kind of fit in a weird way there. So why each one of these has been separated into those things, I cannot give you the history of that. But generally the size thing for lamb and calf, it's the same as bull or ram, and the same as cow or ewe. So that's kind of why we have those names. But in terms of why a pangolin's offspring was called a pup, I honestly don't know. I'm sure there's some whole random explanation. I'm pretty sure this is the kind of question Trish would love, because Trish loves this kind of stuff with taxonomy and names and meanings and all those kinds of things. You can hear the insects clattering into the microphone because of the light that's below here. There's a heron also hunting in the light. Very common practice for birds to hunt in lights because of the fish that get attracted to the light itself. You can see the bright light on the right. Anyway, talking about hunting, Tess has been following Mareeps, who's been chasing things. I wonder if she's still with him and what he's up to.
Yes, it's certainly a very good evening for insects because it's so warm, and it has been so warm the whole of today. I think it is definitely one of those evenings where, everything just starts coming out when it's dark already. Absolutely beautiful evening to be out. I think as much as it's been a very hot day, we've actually been very lucky today. We've had a lot of great sightings. I am going through a dip, so hopefully the signal sticks with me. Maybe we'll get another last-minute predator. Literal last minute. Yeah, I think between all the elephants today especially, there's been so much activity happening. It's been so hot. And really just lovely to see them, just having a lot of fun at the dams, because it's not something we get to see all year round. It's definitely more dominant, now towards the drier months, the end of the drier months. So I'm actually just driving slowly up along the drainage line. I'm so happy that I got to see my reaps. I think that completely made my day. And actually, I was actually kind of thinking about it earlier, and I was thinking, we've really just had a very, very lucky time today with elephants at the dams. I've just stopped here on the dam wall. And I'm just kind of having a listen just to end off the evening. I think it is really just such a special evening to be out. I can hear some owls, I can hear some insects, I can see insects that are trying to come here close to me as well. And I must say it's been, we don't have an infrared light, so we're stuck at the moment, but that's totally fine actually. It's a lovely way to end the evening, just sitting and listening. And we're really, really, thankful for the sightings we had today. I think we were really lucky in terms of all the different things that we saw, especially the elephants. And I really hope that we see you again in the morning. I think it's going to be a very promising morning, especially after such a hot day today and an even hotter day coming tomorrow. I can't even imagine what would be better than the day that we've had today. So thank you so, so much for joining, and cross your fingers and toes that we find something even more incredible tomorrow. It's just such a privilege to have you with us on every drive.